Hello everybody and welcome to the FANUC 2024 Open House event. We're thrilled to have your company today, and also there's a different feel about it, isn't there, today? It's a little bit more intimate, which is always good, especially later on when we have the panel discussions. Now, of course, lots of you here in person, but as you can see around you, there are cameras. We will be streaming this event. So hello to everyone who is watching online. So what does FANUC have in store for us this year? Now, FANUC have assembled an impressive lineup of 37 exhibitors showcasing the latest in machine tools, injection molding, robotics, automation, and so much more. And therefore, there will be a lot of people to meet, to learn from over the next 3 days. So it's a really exciting event. Now, please don't miss out on the exciting World Skills Industrial Robotics National Finals, where talented competitors are battling it out for their chance to represent the UK in 2026 in Shanghai. It's going to be very impressive. It's always very inspiring to see these people working away and doing what they're seeing the passion behind their eyes. Now, it is all signposted, but I believe it's on the mezzanine floor above the Academy if you want to head over there. Right, do make sure you also explore FANUC's innovations, including their robo-shots, the robo-drills, the robo-cut, and don't forget to visit their Meet the Service Engineers area. They're making a big deal of it this year, so they want to talk about all of their comprehensive after-sales that they're capable as well. Okay, for those who are joining us virtually, we've got all the cameras around. We're live streaming on FANUC Europe's LinkedIn and FANUC UK Open House website. This is also for all of you here. If you're not able to make it over the next couple of days, but there's any talks or panel discussions that are happening over the next couple of days, we're streaming everything. So literally, you won't miss out on a thing. Extremely important, lunch is at 12:30. I can see people smiling there as well. So that's happening at 12:30, just to give you an insight as to what's happening throughout the day. Throughout the morning, we're going to have those panel discussions. They're really insightful. In fact, it's my favourite part of this event because it's a two-way street when we have the panel discussions. Of course, we've got the panel here and it can be a heated debate. It can very, very topical, and people get passionate from the audience as well. So we'd love for you to just raise your hand. We've got the mics, and online. If you're watching online, you can send those questions in and we'll get them straight away to the panel. It comes through to my phone and we can ask the panel as well. Amazing technology. So let's kickstart the whole event. I'd like to welcome onto the stage the Managing Director of FANUC UK, Tom Bouchier.
Thanks, Lindsay. Good morning, everyone. Come on, you've all done this before. Good morning, everyone. Come on. Panto season's coming up, so let's get ready. On behalf of everybody here at FANUC and all our exhibitors here, I'd like to really welcome you, a very, very warm welcome for coming over here. We truly believe that having all of our other exhibitors here makes this a unique show. It's not just an in-house show, it's a trade show, really. So we're really glad that you're all here. We're excited to show you what we've been working on. There's some great technologies out there. There's some great people out there to learn from and to see. And there's people, as you'll see later on different stages of their automation journey, from people that are very advanced in it to people that are starting. So we can cover most aspects of how to do it. Our team isn't just about delivering products. It's about delivering solutions. We need to make a difference to the lives of our customers and contribute to the broader economy. I think that's something that is misunderstood sometimes, is how broad the manufacturing economy is. FANUC, from the very beginning, has believed in blending quality, sustainability, and innovation into all of our products, and you'll see that in everything here today. As Lindsay said, if you've attended one of these before, you'll have to see we've done it slightly differently this year. This was down in the training room. That would have been really weird, in the training room. But we've had to cut back on the space on the shop floor. And it's for a very good reason that we're too full out on the shop floor to accommodate it this year, which is a great reason. But we all know we've got much further to go. We're not where we need to be in the UK. We're proud of the relationships that we've built with all of our suppliers, all of our customers. A lot of the exhibitors here will be listed here, and a lot of the facts and figures I mentioned will be listed up here as well. Take a little bit of time to familiarise yourself. If you've got any questions on any of the facts, any of the figures, anything that we need to do, find me, stop me in the show. When the panels are on, challenge the panelists. Really participate. This is about what you can bring to the party, not just us. This isn't a one-way street. We need to learn just as much as everybody else does. So if you can give us your experiences, your problems, your whatever you've got to do with technology, with automation, with manufacturing, and bring it, because you'll all have different perspectives to the people that are sitting up here. So please partake. It really is vital that you participate. We've changed it again, that this is just going to go on until lunchtime up here. We're going to have a coffee break in about an hour so people can move around a bit. But I really would encourage you, if you can, to stay up here for as much as the morning, because there is some fantastic speakers from industry, from academics, from politicians, and it really is important that you listen to the whole spectrum of what the UK needs to do. One of the main themes I always cover is partnerships, and we're partners to a lot of the societies, a lot of the institutes, the AMT, the MTA, BARA, MTC, Make UK, Made in the Midlands, the West Midlands, RAS, and lots of others. And a lot of the information I'm going to give you in some of this is based on their findings. So all I'm doing is passing on their message. I'd love to take credit for it, but I haven't done any of it. So as I said, they're all over there. The West Midlands Robotic Autonomous Systems cluster is based in the West Midlands, and it's people from academic institutions, industry, and local authorities. Where there's been clusters around the world before, they've proved to be massively successful in lots and lots of ways. They've brought on driving technological advancements because there's more people in a group deciding what's needed. They've boosted productivity, and they've certainly created a lot of new opportunities. We all know they come with challenges that need to be addressed as well, and we'd be foolish not to address it, particularly about workforce impacts and ethical considerations. I mean, it really is important that we take the whole spectrum of what technology can do. The continued evolution of these clusters is very likely to shape manufacturing in the future. It really is going to be the way that we will move it along. And as we all know, the UK productivity figures could really do with some improving. So we need to do it. But with the clusters, they've increased productivity. Regions that companies have had, the research institutes and the companies working together, have led to significant improvements in productivity. There's obvious benefits to that. They've reduced operational costs, and they've enhanced competitiveness around the world. We're a global economy. We need to work in that global picture. They've created jobs in new areas. Automation does displace certain jobs. I mean, it's anybody that's worked for a robot company gets hit with this most days. It does displace jobs, but it hasn't got rid of jobs. It's created different jobs. It's created jobs in AI, in robotics design, in engineering, in tech, in lots of different places. It's created more opportunities than it's taken away. But it's important that we upskill to it. I was talking with the West Midlands Mayor earlier, and all we've got to do is move people up one step. You know, when people talk about reskilling, they think we're talking from no skill to Elon Musk in one jump. We're not. We're talking about lots of steps. Let's move everybody up one step, and we will increase the productivity. It attracts investment, most importantly, as well. Where the clusters are can attract public and private funding. It will really increase, which then has further fuels the innovation and the economic growth within those clusters. So we really are keen on taking part in as many associations, as many clusters as we can, because I think it needs everybody that's invested in UK PLC to answer these questions, to make it right. I think our government, our current government, have announced some strategies, the Advanced Manufacturing Plan and a few others. I'm slightly disappointed about the amount of meat on some of the bones on some of those strategies, but it's obviously a lot better than the previous government, who I would have to say had a lot of individual things, called it a strategy, but possibly didn't look up the definition of strategy. So it is a lot better, and we've got to give them the chance to move it forward. I'm not going to mention anything other political today. That's it. I got in trouble last year, and I don't want to do it again. Let's be positive about what this government can do. Let's really support the government. And what I would challenge everybody here to do is canvass local, national politicians, metro mayors, local mayors, everybody. We've got to really make sure we push this agenda as far as we can into what manufacturing can do. A lot of you will have seen we slipped to 13th place in the manufacturing output last year. We were all very happy we'd overtaken France to get to 8th, and somehow we've gone from 8 to 13 in one go. And a lot of that, I believe, there's lots of reasons. There's political reasons, Brexit reasons, lots of other reasons. But a lot of the reasons, I think, are down to the lack of automation in UK, which causes our low productivity. We need to increase the productivity to challenge a lot of other countries. The MTA, who are represented here today, and Oxford Economics report showed the true impact of manufacturing. Traditionally measured, it's about 8% of GDP. If you look at any of the figures, it's shown as 8% of the UK GDP and 7% of employment, so it's still sizable. But if you take in the indirect, for example, the supply chain, us, everybody like that supplies to manufacturing, it grows to 15% of GDP and 14% of unemployment. So it really is important. If you then take in the induced factor, which Oxford Economics measured, as in what all of the people that work in manufacturing spend further down the line and how that goes, it takes us to 23% of GDP. It takes us to £518 billion in the manufacturing and the bigger landscape. I mean, if that's not an industry and a supply industry that deserves to be taken seriously, I don't know what is. I mean, if you can dismiss 23% of GDP, I don't know what hope there is for any of us. And I don't think manufacturing gets the recognition it deserves for the 8%. No chance does it get it for the 23%. I know automation is a lot more than robots, but the IFR make my job easier of judging us in comparison to other countries, because the IFR produced the robot numbers for the worldwide in a nice, easy to read format that I can plagiarise. In post-Brexit UK, since Brexit, we've gone up 3% to over 2,500 robots a year. 2,500 robots a year is a good number, yeah? No? Yeah? Anybody? The light's shining in my face. I can't see if anybody's saying yeah. It's not a good number. It's a less than a tenth of Germany's sales. And I picked Germany not because it's the largest by robot, because it's the largest European, and it's our closest neighbour, but it's actually third in the worldwide table. So I'm not picking the bigger ones, I'm picking Germany, which we could compete with. The top most automated companies with robots per 10,000 workers. The Republic of Korea, North Korea. I don't know what's happening this morning, late night. The Republic of Korea has got 1,012 robots per 10,000 workers. Singapore's got 730 robots per 10,000 workers. Germany's got 415 robots per 10,000 workers. The worldwide average is 151 robots per 10,000 workers. The UK has got 111. We're not even up with the worldwide average, and that includes a lot of countries that you wouldn't consider to be traditional manufacturing countries. So we really do have to close up the gap on all automation, but robots are indicative of that number. Like I say, please don't challenge me that robots are the only automation, because I do know. We really need to increase the uptake, but what we need to do is make sure all stakeholders understand the relevance of automation. What technology is currently available? A lot of people's views on automation will be based on many, many years ago, maybe, when they dipped their toe in, and they haven't looked at it since. So we need to make sure that people know. We can't expect people to understand what technology can do if we don't get the message out, like here today. What today's technology can do for you, how it can work for you, what it can really make happen. We need to upskill to take advantage of it. We can't wait till further down the line to upskill for next year's technology if we can't use this year's technology. We really have to learn what technology can do. We have to make sure C-suite people understand the return on investment. We need to make sure that that argument is there for them to take away and do, because it's all very well having the engineers, having everybody else fully understand what technology can do. If the guy that's signing the cheque doesn't know it, then we're not going to get that investment. So we need to make sure we look at return on investment, not just the capital cost, but we also need to look at the lifetime running costs. So what's that product going to cost you over the next 10 years? If you can base that in your calculation, you can really make a plan for it. And we need to understand all aspects of adoption, the good, the bad, and everything that goes in between. We've got many, many fantastic things in this country. We've got fantastic innovators. We've got fantastic inventors, engineers. We've got a fantastic workforce. We're always punching above our weight, if you think of us even as 13th in the world as manufacturing. But we can improve. Please don't take this as a negative message. We are very, very positive in this country. But we need to improve where we are. We don't need to have revolution. We just need a bit of evolution. And we need to use the more modern technologies. We've got some fantastic speakers here this week. So like I said at the beginning, if you can wait for lunchtime or come up as often as you can before lunch to join in here, and then we can show you around the show in the afternoon, it would be greatly appreciated because your input is vital. We're proud to share what we've got here with you today, and any of the FANUC people who you should be able to recognise as you're going around, I'm assuming most of them except for me have badges on. Just ask them, find out what you need to know. Really drill down on what's going on. Thank you again for coming here today. I'm squeezing in one extra speaker today, who's Mr. Richard Parker, who's the Mayor of the West Midlands. So the whole Metro Mayor for this M6 corridor. And hopefully Richard is going to tell us about why manufacturing is so important to the West Midlands, because we know it is. So if I could just introduce Richard Parker. Mr. Mayor, so however I'm supposed to do it. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Tom, and FANUC for hosting this fantastic event today. And also thank you for all of you for the work you're doing and the commitment you're making and the change you're delivering in terms of the penetration and the work we're doing to ensure that automation and innovation helps transform our engineering and manufacturing sectors, not just in the West Midlands, but in the UK. I've got to build and present to the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Business Secretary a growth plan for this region, and advanced manufacturing and engineering are absolutely the key part of that plan, that programme going forward for this region. And that's because we all need to ensure that advanced manufacturing and engineering wasn't just the history of this region, but with the application of automation and technology, it's the future too. And we have to build on that advantage that we've had here in the West Midlands if we're going to make a difference, and I'm going to make a difference to this place, because I want the West Midlands to be the best place in the UK for people to get a job, build a career, and the best place for businesses to grow too. And this sector is fabric to that. And you'll see when we submit that plan how important this sector is to what we want to do here. But equally importantly, I need your support and involvement in the second phase of that work, which is probably most important, and that is I've been talking to the civil servants about underneath that growth plan, which will focus, as I said, on advanced manufacturing, engineering, life sciences, green tech, and also more broadly digital and technology skills. It needs to be underpinned by a route map of the interventions and actions we need to make if we're going to move our economy from where it is today to where it needs to be in 10 years' time. And that's where I really do need your support. It's about how we ensure that we're including businesses like yours and others to adopt more innovative practices, how we train young people, particularly in the skills that they need in order to get them to access the jobs we need to create, which is really, really important for me, because in this region, we have twice as many young people out of work than the national average. And for too many of those people, they're lacking the support and access to the training they need to get access to the jobs in sectors like this. So we need to advocate and promote, not just for those young people, but ensure we've got a skills system that's fit for purpose too. And yesterday, I was in a meeting with the Education Secretary, and like all mayors, I would like to have a greater role working with business in post-16 education. And we need to do that because we've got, as Tom said, profound productivity issues. Over the last 8 years, the West Midlands has fallen behind Greater Manchester, the other region most similar to ours, by 15%. So the productivity gap between the West Midlands and Greater Manchester now is almost 20%. That means, at quite a crude level, the average person in Greater Manchester is not only earning 20% more than the average person in the West Midlands, but that economy is seen to be 20% more productive and 20% more attractive to investors. And we've got to change that. But we've got to do that for the country as a whole, bridging that productivity gap if we are to remain globally competitive. And the work you're doing and the discussions you're having today and the progress we need to make in automation is absolutely fabric to that plan and programme. In terms of promoting this region going forward, I attended the government's International Investment Summit a few Mondays ago. We're going to have our own summit in the West Midlands next spring. We're just trying to sort dates out, so hopefully the Prime Minister and the Chancellor Exchequer can come for part of them. And what you're doing here and the sector you represent and the work you're doing is absolutely key to that promotion. And I will work with businesses like FANUC and others in your sector, including the cluster groups that Tom's referred to ensure that this sector not just has a presence there, but we promote it as far as we can. So it's great to be here today. Thanks for inviting me. Have a great day, and I look forward to working with you in the future and getting your involvement and your sharing your expertise in order that we can make the best of the opportunity that lies ahead. And if we do that, you can work with me to help build a better future for not just the people that live and work in the West Midlands, but for all of our businesses too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Isn't it always interesting, you know, just a few minutes in and you're learning facts like the comparison that you've just said about Greater Manchester and the West Midlands. Right, another one is a little bit of housekeeping as well. If you are watching, I know Tom mentioned earlier about the exhibition that's happening downstairs. If you're watching online, as I said earlier, it's on the FANUC website, the FANUC Europe LinkedIn, but it's also on MTD CNC. We've got about 142,000 subscribers on the channel now, so please feel free over the next 3 days to watch on any of those platforms. Yes, so you'll be able to see the exhibition later. So we're doing the talks today, but we'll be taking you on a tour around the exhibition later. You're not going to miss out on anything, basically. Right, so next up we have Marco Cecin and Oliver Selby. I'll let them introduce themselves when they get onto the stage. However, Marco and Oliver will be talking about the challenges of automation adoption in aerospace and how by tackling those challenges in collaboration is proving a big success and opening opportunities for growth. I'd like to welcome onto the stage Marco and Oliver. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll let those people who want to vacate the room vacate. I'd like to reiterate sort of Tom's thanks for everyone to be here today. Yeah, it takes a huge commitment to sort of leave anyone's business for a day and spend a day out of the office, so thank you very, very much. My recent discussions with customers have focused on two huge things, collaboration and commitment. And I think the next two keynotes, certainly this one that I'm doing alongside Marco from Airbus, and the next one from Cummins, will show you that commitment side of it. But firstly, we're going to talk about collaboration. And that's a huge, huge step forward for not only us, the way in which we work with our customer base, but also for Airbus and the way in which they've moved forward with their automation adoption plan. So I'd like to introduce Marco. You can introduce yourself, Marco.
Can I have that?
Yeah, of course.
So thank you. So yeah, my name is Marco. I work for Airbus, and I truly love robots. I've been a roboticist all my life, since I was a little boy back in Venezuela, through the time I spent in Japan for more than a decade. And now I'm here in the UK working for Airbus, contributing to the aerospace industry. And so I have a couple of slides on what Airbus is doing that I think it will give you a good perspective on what we do also. So truly a global business. Airbus is located in more than 180 countries worldwide. 200 people, 150,000 and counting. I want to direct your attention to the number on the right lower corner. We have 12,000 suppliers. We receive 2.5 million parts every single day, and we deliver, in average, about 3 aircraft per day, too. So you can imagine the massive operation that we need to deal with. And the other number that is here, is interesting here, is the order book. Over €500 billion in orders that customers are waiting for the orders to be fulfilled. That amounts to about 7,800 aircraft that we need to deliver over the next few years. That means that if you have the money now to buy an aircraft, I can only deliver it to you in about 10 years. We're talking very different numbers from other industries, right? In our best years in the aerospace industry delivers collectively just about 2,000 aircraft, Airbus and Boeing. However, the automotive industry delivers over 100 million cars every year. So we're talking very different numbers here.
So one of our biggest customers in the UK is Nissan up in the northeast. They deliver one car every 50 seconds. Yeah, that's a pretty crazy different spectrum of numbers. But Nissan currently use nearly 2,000 robots in their production. You know, so there's a very, very different remit for them to actually adopt automation because they're delivering so much product. Very difficult and different for you.
Yeah, what I'm trying to get at is that the mentality for implementing automation in aerospace is very, very different from our automotive. We do have many of the same challenges. So when direct comparison with automotive industry, the size of the things we make it's very different. So in automotive, you just bring the chassis, which is usually the biggest thing you find in a car, and all robots, just jump on it, can do the thing. The welding or the drilling or the fastening, whatever it's going to do. In our case, we need to move robots around and take them to the product. So that increases the number of errors that we also can bring into the system as well. Applications because they need to move across the very large components like wings and fuselages. They need to carry everything on their own. They just cannot be just static. We have much higher accuracies than other industries. Also, the cycle time is very different. We don't count in seconds. We count in hours, sometimes days. And also, obviously, the safety aspect is very, very important. We can't use robots that are caged. We cannot completely segregate people from robots all the time. That means that our robots need to be more intelligent. They need to be smarter so that they can understand when they have other people around, because usually multiple operations need to happen at the same time on the same component. So here in the UK, we have a few. We make for the commercial aircraft, we make the wings for all aircraft except the A400, 400M, which is the military aircraft. And we do have very big structures because the assembly is very complex, right? We have bespoke monolithic, jigs, and where we put all the materials, and we drill everything, we just keep the shape. We have limited adaptability, so if we need to increase rate, a lot of our processes need to be manual. So if we need to increase rate, we need to basically duplicate the line or effectively automate, which is something we're going to talk about now. We have a lot of people working on this. A lot of these processes, like I said, are done by people. They are working in rough conditions, right? Not everything. There's very limited access to the things we do. So you have people crawling into the wing or to do sealing or do a specific parts of the wing in drilling. And then obviously we have a lot of challenges in human factors and safety because of that. We determined that 40% of the accidents that happen in the final assembly line happen because people are just moving around. They're falling upstairs, they're hitting their heads. So if we can just have people just do the work where they are, we believe that we can decrease the number of accidents and lead time incidents that could happen. And also, obviously, we have the issues with quality factors. So have you seen anything like this in other industries?
Not quite as bad as this, I'll be honest. So one of the key points here is that the aircraft that Airbus manufacture were designed for manual assembly. They're 20 years in production. Some of the aircraft you're still manufacturing and still have large orders for. I think what's happening and what will happen over the next 10 years or so is that when you introduce a new product, you'll have to be thinking about how you're going to automate that manufacture to meet the order book going forward. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So there will be quite radical changes in the way aircraft are probably put together. They'll still be validated and they'll still be tested and still all documented in the right way, which is a huge part of your business as it is now. But it's a challenge, yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we see sometimes in the glossy magazines that Henry produces and others is sort of nice pictures like this. Nice fighter jet there with yellow robots, which is good. This is not aircraft manufacturing. This is a glossy that's been pulled together for something, probably produced by one of the equipment manufacturers there. But that's not manufacturing as it stands right now. Very much different to that. There are instances where big robots are used on aircraft, and so in the next slide there, we've got one. fuselage manufacturer at Airbus using some big FANUC robots, but even that has its own challenge. I think the thing here that I'd like to pick up on is this took huge commitment from Airbus to put this in place with such a radical change from their previous manufacturing strategy, of people on scaffold, on cherry pickers drilling holes. This took huge commitment, and I think it's going to take huge commitment going forward. And the right tools and the right processes that are fully validated using automation to try and progress Airbus in your automation adoption progress. And I think the challenge we have is that not all tools and processes exist right now, and that's where the collaboration comes in. Okay.
Right. So fact time. We drill every year just over 100 million holes, which means that we also fill as many holes as we do most of our assemblies, which are mechanical joints. Like Oliver said, this is a huge commitment as what we do. But you see, these are big robots with big end effectors trying to do their thing because inserting these fasteners sometimes require very high loads, and so we need this sort of at this time we needed this sort of robots to actually do the work. So because we have such a high volume of holes to drill and to fill at the same time, we basically a few years ago we went to FANUC. And we said, we want you to make something that doesn't exist yet. We can find robots on the market that are bespoke to this sort of applications, but we want to have robots that are off the shelf, that have the stiffness requirements and the accuracy required for what we're trying to do here. And then this was about 2018. We've been working very hard on this over the last few years, and on the other side of that, this came out.
So FANUC tried to use what they have in their locker and develop a robot that was, as I say, highly accurate, highly stiff, that met the process demands of what Airbus were looking for. Not only for, say, here in the UK, but also in Toulouse and other manufacturing sites globally. The M800 robot was born, and it had certain features that made it sort of meet the demands of Airbus, which was a secondary encoder technology, so it's very accurate. Now, for those that know, robots are not always accurate when they come off the production line. They're repeatable, but they're not accurate. And what Airbus needed was an accurate robot that met the demands of their process, so they could program it offline, a bit like a CNC control, or CNC tool, and actually then implement those robotics and make sure the positioning and the accuracy was correct to meet the process demand. The other thing was stiffness, and when you drill a hole, as you know at home, when you're putting your force against the wall and you're drilling a hole, there's a reactive force from that drill. And that's what you need to make sure you cover off with the robot design in this particular case, because as you put a force on, the arms bend, your arm bends, but you adapt and you've got the flexibility to adapt to it. With a robot, it's not quite as easy as that, and we need to make sure they're as accurate and stiff as they can be to meet the process demand.
Right. So we did follow the development of this very closely. Worked together with not only with FANUC UK, FANUC headquarters in Japan, France, as well as Germany, and we were obviously the first use case for this. We took this robot and we integrated it into our own cell. It's an own system that is able to drill. The first application is just drilling because of the high volume, and this, like I said, I cannot understate how long of a process this was for us to an aircraft manufacturer to become a machine builder too. That doesn't mean that we will not need our partners. It means that we're going to be much closer to this sort of process in the future. This system is a reality today. This is the system today in the production line, actually drilling flying parts that we're actually using today in our aircraft. That are currently flying both A350 and A320.
Imagine drilling 1 million holes per year and collecting data on every single hole. That's what this does. Yeah, we can track every single hole that's been drilled to make sure it's met the quality demand of the process. Yeah, it's not done manually now, or the data's not kept manually because it's done with a drill that's operated by a guy. With this, we can collect data on every single hole that's drilled.
Absolutely. And then this robot.
Yep. So luckily we won an award not too long ago, last month, with this robot. It's sort of been awarded the Ministry for Economy, Trade and Industry in Japan Minister's Award, which is a fantastic recognition of the actual innovation that's gone into this particular product to meet the need of a customer.
Right. So, and the same technology developed for this robot has now become a part of the product line for you as well.
Absolutely.
This is where this also came out.
Yep. So we're increasing the size of those robots, the reach of those robots, but using the same tools and technology in the background to make sure they stay accurate and they're extremely stiff. So we now have a 190 kilo version, we have a 270 kilo version, a 400 kilo version, and a 700 kilo version that we can deploy for different applications, different processes that remain accurate and remain stiff.
All of which we have applications for. This is the current development happening in Broughton, up in North Wales, where we're actually developing using the R2000 to drill large diameter holes for wing applications as well. You can see here that we have the full implementation has been done all in-house, including safety, including end effector, everything that needs to go with it. This is something that we follow very closely between the two companies in full collaboration.
So you can see there, I mean, the title of the slide is large diameter drilling. Imagine drilling a 1-inch hole in titanium. The forces and the process requirements needed to drill a hole that size in titanium, but with a robotic arm. That's quite a significant challenge that's been met by this particular equipment that's been developed in collaboration between Airbus and FANUC.
Absolutely, and well, this is a nice picture of the Japanese team that we took in Toulouse about a year ago when we were just about before deploying the robot in the actual production line in France.
No, that's fine. Just
I can repeat the question, if it's easier. So, yeah, the question from the audience there for those online was, did Airbus look at other manufacturers away from FANUC before engaging with FANUC?
We have. And in fact, in our factories, we have robots of all colors. Let's be honest. We've investigated what we can do with each one of the brands. FANUC was the one who was open to listen to our demands on what we wanted it to do. And effectively, like I said, created a thing that didn't exist before. We actually came to ask this request.
I do find that FANUC is actually willing to listen, and they're easier to work with than other manufacturers.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that contribution. Yeah, hopefully we are. We like to listen. We like to try and learn from our customer base and put things in place that actually make a difference. And going forward, hopefully you'll see more of that. Yeah. So Marco mentioned there that they've developed an internal team, to help develop their automation adoption going forward. But they also work with others across the UK, across Europe, and globally in developing solutions that will meet their future process need. You can see there on the board, you've got various institutions, whether that's academic in the Cranfield and Sheffield universities, whether it's catapult centres or high-value manufacturing catapults here in the UK, National Composite Centre, AMRC up in Sheffield. There's some really, really good development work going on that's sponsored by Airbus, that Airbus obviously contribute into. And it's really, really good to see it. It's a really good way of us as FANUC engaging with those large blue chips, but also SMEs. I think that's the important thing, is that these centres are not just listening to the big blue chip companies like Airbus, like Cummins. They're also listening to the SMEs to understand how they can support. Certainly the MTC across the road from where we are now, they have a transformation team. They want small businesses to adopt automation, and they put a team in place to help that. Go to them, speak to them, understand how they can actually support you.
Right. So a good example of that is the work we've done with Cranfield University through one of the catapult centers in Auto-Ramp, government-funded project where we use FANUC robots to in synchronization to lift and install for the first time a fully equipped leading edge into a wing, something that has not been done before. At the time where we did this, FANUC was the only supplier able to do this specific kind of operation that will now actually it's a fairly recent pictures from a project that started 5 years ago. We are finally being able to do this work just at the beginning of this year.
So what will come from sort of the engagement we've had on this project and going forward is a more automated production line. So parts being shipped in on AGVs, parts being picked up using technology such as this, and assembled into situ using robotics rather than overhead cranes, making it quicker. Hopefully one day you'll be making 4 wings or aircraft per day. Who knows, you know? So huge increase, 33% increase.
Absolutely.
Something to aim for. But then coming to the future, I'm really glad to see Alan here in the audience from Loop Technology. We've continued that trend of obviously supporting future developments along with the catapult centres, along with our partners. And you can see there what's coming. I'm not going to ask Alan on when the delivery is, because we'll maybe shift that. But the robots have now been delivered to our partner, Loop Technology, down in Poundbury. They are developing a future composite centre up at the AMRC in Sheffield called Compass. It's a composite manufacturer at speed for the future of aerospace manufacturing, sponsored by various aerospace companies. Very exciting, the fact that we had a delivery of 5 of the biggest robots in the world into the UK for this particular project, and that we could actually put funding in place through various organisations, through institutes, the Aerospace Technology Institute, and through private funding through those aerospace companies to sort of make this happen. So really, really exciting going forward. I would suggest that if there's anyone with other projects similar to this or wanting to sort of engage with us, or for us to put you in contact with the right people at Catapults or with the Airbuses of the world, then feel free to contact us.
For that. Well, thank you very much.
So we will welcome any questions should the audience have any further questions, but just wait for the microphone to come to you, and then that makes it easier for the online audience. Any questions? Have we got on that?
Hello.
Hi.
I have a research interest in digital twin technology for manufacturing. So 2 parts. What did you use pre-build in terms of simulation, identification of your solution? Post-build in real time, you talked about gathering lots of information. How is that used to improve your process?
It's probably better with you initially.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the thing to mention here is that our bestseller, the A320, is a very manual build. You know, it was designed, like Oli said, it was designed in the 1980s for a full run of 600 aircraft. Today we make 700 of those every year, and we've delivered more than 10,000 of those too. So a lot of those processes have not been digitized to some extent. We're looking into implementing some of those technologies in the coming product, which we expect to be within the next 10 to 15 years, we hope. And we're basically studying those technologies now. It's not something that we've done traditionally, but we're just looking into as many possibilities as we have there, not making too big commitments to any one supplier, any one software package at the moment.
So on the digitization side of things, we can look at it in 2 different ways. There's obviously the process digitization, collecting data from the actual process when it's happening. And that, for example, will be through the CNC itself. So we drive the drills that Marco puts on the end of robots to drill holes using a CNC, a FANUC CNC. We can collect data every 4 milliseconds or whatever it may be, you know, very, very quick. And we can actually track the torque and the speed of the drill as it's drilling a hole through composite layers, for example. We can see if there are voids, because the torque will drop off. If you're going through a void, we can see when there might be issues with the material, for example. We're collecting data like that, which will drive future process. On the robot side, and actually the way in which those robots are implemented, we're collecting data internally within the FANUC system for things like predictive maintenance use. We can tell you when a robot's going to break down. You know, it's already been implemented hundreds, if not thousands, of robots globally in automotive. We learn a huge amount from that. You know, that's where the majority of robots are installed globally, is in automotive. So let's learn from it, and then allow you as the SME, allow these guys as a big blue chip company using robots in the future to actually learn from that and actually see when they need the robots to be maintained, or when parts maybe they're going to fail. You know, it's not very often, I'll be honest, but yeah, we can collect the data at least. So,
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
One at the back there.
It was mentioned earlier that the robots don't take jobs, they create jobs. So I'd like to ask Airbus, I see this picture there, and I see that the work environment is quite robot heavy. Where did all the people go, and did Airbus accommodate upskilling of the people
Yes.
in any way?
Yes. So the answer to your question is a resound yes. We're not. I'm not here to replace. So I'm the robots person in the company, but I'm not here to take away jobs from anybody. My job is to support the journey of the company to upskill everybody else so that people can do what they do best. However, we do have jobs in the company today that are dangerous for people to do. One easy pick is our paint shops. Paint shops are terrible environments to be in, and these are things that we can have robots do in the future. Also, any sort of, in the case of wings, for example, any sort of in-tank work, that is the sort of thing that we need to automate in the future. Today is very challenging for the reasons I just explained about the design of the aircraft itself. So in the future, when we have the aircraft designed for automation, that should be the case. And we have people do the things that they can do best, using their brains to do more creative work. And obviously put the robots into operation and things like that. Yeah, don't go by what the picture says.
Yeah, I'd say that's a very creative marketing person. So yeah. Any other questions? One more question. Sorry.
Phil Waters from JL Gore in Ireland. I do have a question for you, but I just want to, for anybody who's not in aerospace, just to reiterate with a very quick example. My background was automotive, making hundreds of thousands of assemblies a year, and I went to work for a company that made the empennage, or the posh word for a tail, for Honda Jet.
Okay.
Honda Jet, basically 350 parts, 12 aircraft sets a month, and the paperwork for one empennage, for those 300 parts, would 3/4 fill a transit van. So make no mistake about how serious the aircraft industry takes safety and the difficulty trying to get that repeatability through a manual process. And I guess my question, Ollie, is how difficult was it, and it may be, you may tell me that FANUC has experience with other aircraft manufacturers, but how difficult was it trying to adjust to that, to kind of like listen to Airbus and understand what it is they're trying to achieve and how difficult it was?
I think we had to break it down, first of all, obviously into different stages. The first one was to make sure we had a full understanding of the process requirements. That was the easy bit, and that's kind of probably where we're at now. In all honesty, we've delivered a product based on understanding the technical requirements and the technical specifications of a process. We're in that next stage now, where further discussions are happening. I mean, you were in Japan last week. Yep. Talking to the very top guys in FANUC to look at what comes next. And I think the process software side of things is what comes next. Data capture, yes, it's available, yes, it's happening. But I think, how do we make it easier for the customer to deploy into automation solutions going forward? That's the bit that's still got to happen. So we're not there fully yet, but things do exist and things are happening in the background.
All right.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, okay. Stephen's up next and he's patiently waiting. We're running a little bit behind time, but it's fine. Just wanted to let you know as well, thank you for your comments that are coming in online. Of course, we had a gentleman complimenting FANUC, but online also. Someone says that they're running a factory in South Korea, some really good praise. And Oliver, I think you answered another question already online that came in. So thank you very much about FANUC using the robot to drill the holes. Okay, so next up, challenges of global automation deployment. Stephen Grace is here from Cummins. Now, Stephen is going to discuss how Cummins adopted a truly global approach to automation adoption and put it high on their agenda as part of their manufacturing strategy. Stephen will also discuss the challenges of that rollout and the major benefits the programme succeeded in delivering as a global scheme. We've made him wait long enough. Welcome to the stage, Stephen. Thank you.
It's good. Just bear with me while I get the timer running. Otherwise, you'll be here for a couple of hours. So, good. You can't see everyone, can you? It's good. It's not so bad. So thank you, Marco. Thank you, Oliver. I feel hopefully I can follow on from what was an awesome presentation. But also thank you to Tom and Oliver for allowing me to come here today and talk a little bit about what we've done from a global scale to kind of deliver on that commitment to automation that Oliver talked about at the beginning. So hopefully this is not going to be too dry. A little bit less pictures than Marco in my presentation, which hopefully I can make up with suitable content. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking, do a little bit of introductions about myself and a little bit about Cummins, because I often find Cummins is seen as a bit of a sleeper company. A little bit about the case for automation, which I think it will be a little bit of a reiteration for many of us in the industry. Talk a little bit about the program that we developed for incremental investment in automation and technology, and then talk about the successes, challenges, and then some final thoughts for us to take away. So I put this slide in. Sometimes I worry that this is a bit of an internal dimension, but just a little bit about me. I've been around like 25 years. Why is she laughing? I'm now worried about which picture she's laughing at. But anyway, the important stuff is on the right. The career stuff is on the left. So yeah, 25 years in the industry, mostly in manufacturing. Been with Cummins for 23 of those. Done a lot of stuff around the world in both manufacturing and service. Obviously family, and then the brisket piece, by the way, is the random meat picture, which was the pickup from Texas. 5 years in Texas does change you, and we can talk more about that. So a little bit about Cummins. Like I said, Cummins can sometimes, is a little bit under the radar, obviously supplies products to other people. It's a little bit like the Intel Inside phenomenon, if anyone resonates with that one. But we are relatively large, 190 countries we operate in, about 75,000 employees globally. Been doing it for about over 100 years, if you think about the diesel engine. So that's pretty phenomenal. And some of the things that we're quite proud of is that the level of investment that we do, both in terms of product technology and manufacturing technology, globally is pretty strong. So just thinking a little bit about Cummins in Europe, and this slide needs to be updated slightly, but we have a pretty strong presence, and what it's recognizing here is, for those that weren't aware, that we acquired Meritor a couple of years ago, also some elements of Siemens. A lot of that to do with, by the way, is our energy transition. I've mentioned the diesel engine, but we have a very clear strategy towards Destination Zero, which we also recognize will mean that the products that we primarily produce, or we're famous for, are actually no longer going to be needed. So Cummins actually has a really strong strategy around transitioning to transition technologies and also green technologies in the long run. A little bit more importantly, just want to talk about Cummins in the UK. You know, this is something that I'm really passionate about manufacturing, passionate about manufacturing in the UK, and Cummins has a really strong footprint here in the UK. Just over 5,000 people. We've got 4 key manufacturing sites, as well as 12 offices and distribution centres across the UK. We spend about 100 million a year in innovation. A lot of that's product-centric, but we're making a really big push in manufacturing and innovation at the moment. So watch this space, but we're partnering with a lot of the catapults that were talked about earlier, MTC, AMRC to start with, but we're going to do a lot of work with those guys going forward. Do a lot of work with government on some of these cleaner technologies I just mentioned, which is also something really key. Really proud of what we do in terms of community involvement, quite a few hours in that, and then there's some really good stuff around our environmental buildings as well. So, it's a bit words, sorry. I feel like after the previous slide, all the pictures, I feel like this is going to be a little bit of an eye test. But I think it's some really important pieces that I want to sort of bring out in here. So we know this case. I think most of you are going to resonate with many of the factors that are on this page, but I'm going to spend a little bit of time just talking through them just very briefly, and we talk about why we developed our incremental program. But labour concerns is very real for many of us, both in terms of shortage of labour and also the capabilities of the labour. And that is actually posing challenges as we try and scale or change for different needs of technology. Productivity, I think it's already been mentioned. Some of those statistics that I heard earlier, I was sort of a bit surprised about. I'm also aware, because I work in a global role, the differences between UK, Europe, and the rest of the world. So it's just a very interesting dimension when you look across the world, different labour rates, but the key thing is that in every area, if we can improve productivity, it's a win for both the local economies and for businesses as a whole. Quality's been talked about. I mean, we're a sort of industrial player. I wouldn't say that we're quite at the same levels as Marco, though Marco, still want to go and see your very cool drills. But we use technology a lot to help us improve the product quality, and we're moving into technologies now which are a lot more on highway, batteries, electrolyzers, and they're requiring higher levels of quality than we're perhaps used to, and technology is going to help us to meet some of those needs. Improved capability. This is really a reference as well to the fact that technology is actually improving. And the next two comments really talk about the way that robotics and automation has both been increasing in terms of its capabilities, but also decreasing in terms of its cost. So what is really interesting for us now is that some of those things are more capable and more accessible to us than they were 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. And then finally, which really should have been at the top of the list, is worker safety. And it's really interesting. I've seen pictures of people doing fuel tank work on wings. We don't have confined space, stuff like that, but we have plenty of challenging applications, and we do have the same paint challenge that Marco talked about as well. We want to move people from those hazards instead of relying on PPE as that kind of last line of defense, and this is where technology can definitely help us in that play. So nothing outstanding new, I think, for all of us when we look at that. So I've kind of mentioned a few of these already, but this was the case of the imperative is growing, was where we were at. And thinking the kind of 2019, 2020 domain, we knew that through emissions regulations, we have lots of kind of new products coming down. We were constantly having to change, retool, reconfigure our lines, so we have new products. We also had new segments coming on board. So I've already talked a little bit about some of that transition as well. So we had new segments arriving with us. And this kind of aligns with that top right there, is this, Cummins has got this core business shift. So, you're thinking about agility and flexibility and how we can deliver that. Down the bottom, geopolitical change and supply chain realization, I'll bracket them together. Those two external dimensions right now are probably what weighs most on our mind. COVID is on there because that was a very big deal for us in 2020, and that was a big kind of burning platform that we had at that time for automation. And that really changed the landscape and made us think differently about that. But then I think about, I always think about Evergreen, and obviously with the impact that had on the way we viewed supply chain and globalization, because that challenged us and realized that we were too dependent upon those global supply chains, and we need to be thinking a little bit more about regionalization strategies. And obviously, if we're going to play into the current narrative, and we're not allowed to mention politics, I know where Tom is, but obviously there's concern in global trade around tariffs and all that, the dimensions, and how is that going to impact us as a company and how we operate in all the global regions that we are. Bottom right-hand corner, and I feel like I keep talking about it last, and really I should be talking about it first, so I need to make that change. But technology can allow us to remove those people. I've said it before, I'll say it again, is that's a very key driver for a lot of the things that we're trying to do from the process we're in there. We have lots of things that we can do better. We do a lot of good things. Definitely an area that's helping us out is automation and technology. So this led to us to create a program. And the program was an incremental automation program. So our plants, they have capital budgets, they have plans, they're doing things, they have cost targets that are driving their natural growth and evolution of what they're doing. We needed to go faster. So what we did is we created this global program that talked about that in here. So we did a lot of work at that time, and it was 2020 when this was started. We wrote a white paper, we did some strategy sessions, a lot of PowerPoint was produced. Some of it was good as well. But the key part here is we developed a centralized investment program. And like I said, I use the word incremental a bit, but the aim here is to kind of create this extra beyond what was natively happening within our operations. So I've already mentioned the global. So cross BU and the regional program, that was really important. We're a global company, and so sometimes it's very easy when you look at ROI things to think about labor rates. And I'll talk a little bit more about ROI and the challenges of that in a minute. It was focused. So for those of you that have ever been a plant manager or ever worked in the sort of facilities domain or in capital planning inside a unit, quite often the tension is, should I replace the roof or buy some robots? And eventually the roof replacement becomes an inevitable thing, and you don't buy the robots. So what we wanted to do was make sure this program was focused on driving automation and was somewhat protected from that. We also knew we needed to drive capability. I think there is some skills. It's really important to have the fundamentals when you think about the processes and understand how value flows within the organization, those classic manufacturing engineering, industrial engineering capabilities. But you also need to understand how you're going to automate those and think about how those value chains are actually going to be improved. And then ROI. So ROI, return on investment. It's very easy at this point to dive straight into cost. But you'll see me, I use SQDC. I don't know how common that is among them, but safety, quality, delivery, cost is the way that we always think about what we're trying to do. And they're in that order for a reason, because that's the priority, the sequence. But we obviously have return on all of those elements when we're doing automation and robotics programs. Obviously, cost is very much a primary driver, but the other dimensions have indirect benefits, and they have people benefits as well that we need to think about. How am I doing? Good, thank you. I like the positive reinforcement. So just a couple of snapshots there from the screen. The one thing I want to talk about down the bottom there, it's probably a bit of a soft slide, because we have this global portal where you can go in and you can request money, and you have to fill out a standardized form. It's really simple. It's SharePoint. We knocked it up in sort of a couple of days. But people can go in there, and we have standard templates, we have standard cost structures, and then we evaluate each project compared to each one in a standard way. The other thing which is very, very cool is that nearly every one of our processes that have been deployed, we have deployment videos. So when you're dealing with a company, a little bit in our scale, the phrase reinventing the wheel is a real problem. 140 odd manufacturing sites in the world. Level of standardization is not as strong across those as it perhaps could be for lots of different reasons. But what you end up with is many people trying to solve the same problem in different regions, and you've really got to knock that on the head. That's an incredible organizational waste. So program is good. It's been running. I tried to go pictures now. So this is the stuff everyone comes for, isn't it? The pictures. All the pictures of the brisket, I think, were popular. These are just some snapshots of some of the work that we've got going on. And it feels like, at top left there, a couple of these at top left and top right are in Darlington, by the way. The middle one is in Mineral Point in North America. That's welding after-treatment cans, delivering engine blocks in Indiana, down the bottom left. I think the one on the bottom right is maybe in India, is camshaft grinding. But these are the kind of projects for us, which is quite typical of the sort of projects that were funded by the program to improve things. A couple of snapshots here of some of the stuff that's going on. Left one is Daventry, and then Darlington, and then you can tell it's Darlington, by the way, by the number plate. We like naming robots, by the way. Good strategy for getting employee engagement when you're deploying technology. But yeah, some really great solutions were deployed and lots of innovation by the teams. So I just want to talk a little bit about results. So this is not everything. This is the incremental, the program-driven results. I did a quick tally. It is over 360. We'll talk about the red one again in a minute. I just wanted to be honest. Not everything goes to plan. No one's perfect. And then also, we're still in wave 4. So what we did is we created waves. We're actually funded up, and we're doing a wave 5 next, wave 5 and 6 over 2025 and 2026. We're carrying on the program. Really excited by it. Now I had to sanitize this slide, obviously. There was some more interesting numbers down there originally, but had to take that off for obvious reasons. 1.7 years on average. Now most of you are probably working under some sort of financial expectations of maybe 2 years. Maybe you're generous. Maybe you get 3 years. But that's on average. Now that we have some of the projects around safety and quality, we're running a little bit higher. But overall, and I think this is the benefit of the program effect, is that we could justify as a program the benefit of 1.7. That did give us a little bit of wiggle room to have some of those safety and quality projects that quite didn't have the direct benefits as well. Significant, obviously, labour savings, allowing us to redeploy and reuse labour where we needed to. And then it really talked about some of those indirect quality and benefit savings in safety as well. So really, really proud and pleased by the plants and the work they did, because they're the ones doing it. I'm just the bank. So a little bit of an eye test. Hope this one comes over okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the successes and then a little bit about the challenges. And what I'll start with is the focus, right? There is no denying that having some sort of central program will help you both as a business, both as a plant, as a team. It allows you to actually get there and focus on the technology and actually delivering that value that we've got there. In our case, one of the other secondary benefits was it was global. The challenge that we have is if you do a lot of the straightforward cost ROI, you could always end up investing in your high labor cost plants first, but we need to spread that out because some of the places that are currently at lower labor costs are actually going to become the higher cost plants of the future. So something to think about there. We're able to balance. I've already mentioned this. You know, there is that natural tendency, if everything's done as a discrete project, that's going to focus on the ROI that's driven by cost. It allowed us to actually look at other projects and make sure we had a broad spectrum across that safety, quality, and delivery dimensions as well. Capability, again, having that focus, it was important. I think we've got lots of great people, but obviously we wanted to do more and more in automation and technology and make sure people are thinking about how to use that, and this program helped to kind of elevate the thinking around that. Concentrated. I've mentioned the roof kind of analogy before, but you know, if you don't protect your investment, there's always trade-offs. You know, capital programs and investment programs and depreciation that's running in your plants and your operations is always a challenge. And if you're not careful, sometimes I need a new washroom or I need a new roof does overtake the need to invest in automation and technology. And then standards, we were able to control it a little bit better. 144 plants, I could end up with 144 different robot types. Not always the best way. I think we do need to have some flexibility around types and brands and what have you, but at the end of the day, I also want to kind of narrow it a little bit because it does help from spares, training, purchasing, those sort of things as well. And then, you know, just like project standards as well. If we can develop a solution which I can deploy to 2 or 3 different locations, it saves a lot of that sort of thinking and development cost that you might get there as well. Okay, the red slide. So, trade-offs. I mean, I've said it already about the roofs. The reality was, what they realised was, I've got my plant capital budget, and I've now got Steve's capital budget. If I get the automation for him here, I can still do the roof. So we did lose some. So the reality was that, you know, and I'm not going to call it out for those of you that ever run a plant, you know, we did get that little bits of trade-offs, and that's fair. We knew we weren't going to be 100% perfect. Cobots. I love cobots. Who has cobots here? Anyone have cobots in the audience? Yes. But they can't solve everything. But we did go a little bit crazy for a little while there. So cobots were very key. During the COVID kind of burning imperative, cobots were seen as the answer to everything. We obviously wanted to separate people and give spacing for obviously lots of reasons during the pandemic. And it was seen as the technology that was going to solve everything. And the reality is it's a great technology and it's a great concept, but it's not for everything. However, what happened was everyone thought we had to buy cobots. And so we probably got a few more cobots than we need. And some of them may be in cages, which is always upsets me because we thought we had to have them there, and then you did all the risk assessments and they ended up there. So it was just a little bit of an interesting foible. We still got the value from the projects and the automation, but it was just an interesting watch out because people misunderstood the mission at the time. But yeah, it was good times. Balanced. Yeah, I think, don't forget, oh sorry, I'm looking at the wrong slide there. I'm talking about the one in the middle there. So supporting processes. Please don't forget about, we've talked about the skills that you might need, but obviously the skills you might need in your manufacturing and commissioning people, but the skills you might need to maintain that. So your supporting processes from maintenance capabilities, your digital skills in that sense. Controls engineers now are like more like, you know, they're like gold dust. I mean, if you've got any, you want to ask them to come and join Cummins, I'd be happy to talk. But the reality is that like we do need to, there's a different dimension then to your maintenance and your support services around there. But also, I'd like to draw, we talked a bit about digital manufacturing in the previous presentation, but systems integration and how you're actually going to leverage that, and you think about your I4 or your digital manufacturing strategies, that is also a really, really key piece. Regional ROI differences in this really is a labor rate challenge. If you're only in the UK or you're only in Europe, that may be less of an issue for you. But for a company of our size with plants in around the world, if it ends up being the redeployed labour in one region, it may end up with a balance, and the project may look more appealing. Otherwise, I don't invest in North America or the Europe only, and that wasn't going to be the best thing for Cummins. So we had to really, really watch out for that. Interestingly, Oliver made a comment about understanding the processes and preparing for the data. I can't stress this, underlying process understanding is really, really key. That one red that I talked about earlier was because we didn't understand the process. So you can go and put robots in that will just pick up a manual task of moving it A to B, but once you actually start getting into some hardcore automation and technology deployment, if you don't truly understand the process that you're automating, what are the output characteristics you need to achieve in that, you can end up in a little bit of a pickle, as we did with one of them. And we just did not understand all the variables that we had to manage in that process, and it sort of didn't go as well as planned. So truly understand your process before you enter into automation. And then finally, down the bottom, initiative to the way. A bit of a weird statement, I realised, but I was trying to squeeze it into the bubble. It's an initiative right now. So if the initiative stops, does the automation stop? Now, like I said, this is incremental, but what we want to try and do is that we want to try and drive this increased focus on automation and want it to be sustainable after the central program stops. So you've got to think about how you transition from Steve banging on about automation and giving out the money to how that sustains into the businesses and the plants that we're going on afterwards. Okay, final thoughts. So, automation can help. I mean, you're all here, right? So I'm really sort of, talk to the choir, preaching, I won't give a phrase, but you know what I'm saying about. We know that automation is a value multiplier. I think there's lots and lots of opportunities that automation and robotics can absolutely reinforce and make every process in our plants, okay, maybe a lot of processes in our plants and our facilities a lot better. The imperative is now. I mean, it's interesting, obviously, listen, and Tom and the mayor who came up here talked a lot about a lot of the challenges. We had a burning platform at the time the program was started, which was COVID. You could argue that the burning platform has changed. You know, is it UK PLC now? Is it post-Brexit? Is it going to be the impact of US trade tariffs? I'm not sure that necessarily that the current burning platform changes, but the underlying imperative for what we need to achieve, both from UK PLC, UK manufacturers, or as just global businesses, is absolutely and will always be there. That drive for productivity, to protect our people, to drive better quality, you know, improve our velocity in our plants. Those mandates and that imperative doesn't really change. A central program can help. Now that was the point here, and we talked about commitment earlier. If you're struggling to get that focus, centralize it for a while. I think there's a lot of value. It allows you to be blindly focused on actually deploying technology and automation without perhaps the challenges and the conflicts that you have in a more local environment. Now, I don't believe it's the end game. I mean, you may decide to choose to keep a program central, but we're trying to use this to drive it in and make it much more normalized in the way within our operations. Standards and skills. I mean, I think we again, this has been touched on already by several of the speakers, but you will need slightly different skill sets. You know, you still need the underlying things. I can't run away from the fact that people have to understand the process. We need to understand value streams, right? You know, you can't just automate bad stuff. It'll be better, but it won't really be sustainable. So just watch out for that. But also think about the digital skills that you're going to need as you have an increasingly automated workforce. And I can't stress enough, if we think about digital manufacturing, systems integration right now, I know there's a question about digital twins as well. What are you going to do with big data? How are you going to integrate this into your MES, your WMS? I mean, these are all the challenges that are very, very real. So think a lot about the bigger picture and what that might mean for your workforce planning. And then bottom point, probably because I'm living that little red square we talked about there, don't underestimate understanding the process. I think a lot about this right now is like, you know, I grew up a lot around lean, understanding your value stream, understanding a good value stream, then automate it. You can go and automate a bad value stream, feel free, and it will probably make your bad value stream better. But really, you've still got to have a good understanding of the processes that you're going to achieve and making sure you understand those input variables and what you're trying to achieve from a definition of quality in the process. There we go. Thank you very much.
Fabulous. Hand went straight up before I even. Here we go.
25 minutes, Oliver.
Thanks for the really enlightening presentation. Just picking up on a couple of things you said there about your payback is 1.7 years. You're saving millions and millions in, savings, whether it's quality or health and safety or just plain old resource. But you, on the other hand, countered that by saying it's still quite a struggle to sell automation within the business.
Yeah.
What else do you think it would take to make the adoption of automation a natural thing rather than a forced thing?
I think one of the things I keep thinking about a lot, and really appreciate the question, probably should write a paper on that, because it's quite a multi-factor thing. I think there's a lot of challenges. I think a lot about trying to balance the books from the P&L point of view of a plant, and I kind of alluded to that in some of my commentary, that people are worried about depreciation burden versus what it actually means to improving their cost structure in terms of their managed expense. I think we have quite aggressive return on investment targets, for example, which is something I challenge with when I think about the technology, but as a business leader, I understand why we do that, because it de-risks the process. So one thing I think about is that we'll quite happily depreciate an asset over 12 years, but obviously we have a return on investment expectation of 2 years now, or thereabouts, right? So I think it's coming up with a trade-off. So I think as we think about that as a business, that's a strong conversation to have. The other thing I would think about is how do you calculate in those indirect benefits a little bit into the calculation. So I talked about safety, quality, and delivery and cost. Depending on how your accountants and your financial people like to work, quite often they'll talk about C, but they won't necessarily give you the full financial credit for the SQ and D part, right? I think we all recognize if you can improve the velocity and improve cash flow, reduce inventory, have better line balance, there's a financial benefit to that. There's obviously a financial benefit to quality if that can be reduce your before in service or your warranty defects. Trying to quantify safety benefits is not something that we're going to get into, but I think there's lots of ways we can improve the business case at the bottom end. And then I think one of the things that I spend a lot of my time trying to do is educate as well, and have that robust conversation, because some people are very close to the idea that I'm going to spend this money, you're going to increase my depreciation, is that really going to lead to my overall P&L looking healthier next month? And that's the challenge. But that's my short answer. I love the question.
Thank you.
That was a toughie to start with.
Thank you. Got another question.
Hi, I think you said the figure of maybe 140 manufacturing sites.
Yeah.
Thinking about rolling out automation across such a huge sort of network of plants that you've got, was there much sort of cultural change that was required within the business? That plant managers, people that are sort of working on the floor, maybe. I think you mentioned about sort of naming robots helps people to sort of accept them.
Yeah.
Not see them as a threat, but as an opportunity.
Yeah.
What work did you have to do, or is there anything you've learned from the process around incorporating automation within the workforce?
Yeah. So I heard two questions in there. I think there was a high level and a more local level, because I think the high level part is quite easy. When we centralised it, and obviously there was funding available, the kind of standard "what's in it for me" mentality sort of took over, which is nothing wrong. A plant saw, I can apply now to go and get some funding from Steve's fund. We'll call it Steve's fund for the sake of and then that drove the easy side. But you're right, from a local adoption point of view, think a lot about mobile robots right now, which is probably the sort of most interesting or raw experience. If I go and put a caged robot on a line, that's not really as challenging from a cultural change, but like mobile robots, for example, driving around in your gangways and your aisleways and then having that challenge. So yeah, we did a lot to communicate, a lot of hand-holding. It's always fun, because it's very, very raw, particularly with the mobile robots. Well, Steve was driving a fork truck last week, and now he's over there doing a different job, right? I wanted to drive my fork truck. I don't like that mobile robot. But we communicated a lot. I don't really have a strong single answer, but what I would say is just build that into your planning up front. Work with your ops leaders, your health and safety, your team leaders. Obviously engaging line personnel or whoever you're working with are going to be impacted by that change as early as possible in the deployment, all helps to kind of just break it down into sort of small challenges rather than a big, suddenly Steve rocks up with a robot and you're stealing my jobs or you're making my life more miserable, whatever that is. Yeah. So it's a bit, just touch me up afterwards and we'll have a deeper conversation on that one.
No more questions? Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are running over ever so slightly, but we are going to give you 10 minutes break. But next up is going to be a talk on the current state of UK manufacturing and the future for the sector. It's an essential one to listen to. Henry Anson from Hennick Research, he's laughing now. No, but it is. It's a really important topic of discussion. So do make sure, if you want to go and get yourself a drink or anything like that, please do come back. We're just going to take a break for 10 minutes, and that's the same for the live stream. We will be back in 10 minutes' time. Thank you.
There's always new products being developed. There's always something new going on. We don't know what's going to be available next, but it'll be worth coming along to find out.
What I like about the open house event that we do is there's always something new on offer. There's always something innovative. There's always something that people haven't seen before. There's no end to the technologies, no end to the possibilities.
Please come in, please come and join us. Let's keep this debate going. Let's keep moving in the right direction, and I really hope to welcome you at FANUC Open House 2024.
FANUC Open House will take place at our UK headquarters from the 12th to the 14th of November. Day 1 will be all about enabling step change for automation adoption. Day 2 will have an education focus where we'll be holding the World Skills National Finals for Industrial Robotics. 10 young budding engineers will be competing for this year's first place. Day 3 will be showcasing the future of automation and our industry. So don't miss out. Make sure you register for this year's free event using the link below.
Really looking forward to the FANUC Open House this year. It's the 12th to the 14th of November at our Coventry headquarters, Anstey Park in Coventry. This year we're focusing on sort of 3 main topics. First is kind of like how are we doing now in terms of manufacturing. The important thing for us this year is also about collaboration and partnerships. That's where we see huge value to those that are coming to the show, to actually understand what best practice looks like, what the return on investment looks like, and where we can actually learn from others. And that's really where you can learn as one of those people coming to the show. I want to try and learn and understand how others are doing it in the best possible way. Get to the FANUC Open House in Coventry.
Welcome back, everybody who's watching online and everybody within the audience here. You've had a little break, but next up, as I said, is a really important topic to be listening to. So we've got Henry Anson here from Hennick Research, who is talking about the current state of UK manufacturing and the future for the sector. I've got a long introduction for you, Henry, but I'll let you kickstart there.
Lindsay, thank you, and quite a frightening setup from you. So yeah, Henry Anson, I'm an MD here at the manufacturer and have been in situ for 20 years. Now, hands up, straight away, I'm a complete fraud, okay? I can't change a plug. I had to get my wife to do it at home. So I'm in total awe of what you guys do to keep us fed, watered, secure, safe, etc., etc. What we do at the manufacturer, though, is we talk to you guys on a very, very regular basis. We interview you, we come to your sites, we conduct research with you. So what we've got is some kind of aggregated understanding of what is keeping you guys up at night, what are your pains, what are your fears, what are your hopes for the future, and hopefully that's what I'm going to be talking a little bit about today. So despite being completely incompetent, I do have some of that background I can hopefully share with you. So my presentation is going to be 3 bits to it. So we're going to look back at 24. We're going to look into 25. And I am going to get political, I'm afraid. I'm going to talk a little bit about the budget that came out a couple of weeks ago, because it has, I think, some quite profound implications for the sector. When I was submitting essays way back when at university, I used to give the lecturer my answers before I actually wrote the essay. So very briefly, 24, largely positive, 25, cautiously optimistic, budget, we finally got a government that actually might understand manufacturing. So you can switch off now because you've had my overview in one go. Okay, so we're going to move on to 24. As I said, largely pretty positive, I think. There's been a lot of headwinds, a lot of pressures on the sector, but the PMI index has shown positive numbers for 8 out of the last 10 months. Which is really encouraging. Anything over 50%, for those of you who don't know, shows a sector in growth. Anything under 50% shows that sector's contracting. The last month's figure was negative, but it was 49.9%, and I think that's just a rounding error personally. So the other interesting fact here, and I'll come into it a bit more detail in a minute, is we've been tracking a long, long way ahead of our French and particularly German counterparts, who've been down at 45, 44% for most of the year. So confidence in the UK, optimism in the UK is much higher than it is in the rest of Europe. And obviously the big question is why? Lots of new tariffs and trade issues that we've got to contend with at the moment, which does impact everything from source materials to shipping products internationally. Now, one of my slightly controversial takes, I'm going to caveat this, I was not a fan at all, but just potentially what Brexit made UK manufacturing do was look at its supply chains and their resilience before our European cousins. So just maybe one of the Brexit sort of benefits, in my personal opinion, not many, was that you guys actually looked at your supply chains and shored them up, made them more resilient before our European cousins. You are up against huge global competition. We all know that. Asia and North America are ramping up innovation and production capacity. I understand that the Americans are investing $20 billion a month in building up their chip facility, manufacturing facility in the US. It's the scale, sorry, that's the scale of the competition we're up against. But they view manufacturing, as I think this government is starting to, as a strategic imperative. We have to be able to manufacture pretty much all we need on these shores, particularly in these very, very difficult global geopolitical times. One of the big factors that is never going away and is a big feature for my looking forward to 25 is the shift in workforce dynamics. We've got a maturing workforce, well documented, and young skilled workers entering the sector are not entering at the rate that we need them. One of my key takes here is that with the digital skills that the manufacturing sector now needs, and in the automation and robotics, is we are actually competing against the likes of Google and Amazon for the same kind of talent, the same kind of digitally aware talent. Personally, I think the lack of young people coming into the sector is probably the biggest long-term threat to UK manufacturing. Innovation. So competitors are advancing worldwide with automation and innovation and digital transformation. I think the UK is behind. Tom was mentioning it earlier, and I think I've got some stats later that complement what Tom was saying. But I think we are playing catch up. But I think there's an advantage in that, in the sense that the Europeans, the Germans particularly, invested early in the technology and in the robotics and in the automation, and the technology's moved on. So actually now is the time for you guys to really embrace these changes. Okay, so next slide, key challenges. These, you know these as well as I do, but I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail. Energy cost volatility. There were hugely unpredictable energy prices late last year and the year before as a result of the Ukraine issue. But that is something you guys are going to have to deal with going forward. I've mentioned digital skills shortages. Data analytics, automation maintenance, and digital integration. We need those skills in the sector. We need them now, or as soon as we can possibly get them. The sustainability issue is not going away at all. The pressure, and under this government as well, the pressure to reduce your carbon footprint is going to be relentless. It's not just regulators, it's customers demanding it as well. Our kids' generations are looking at our carbon footprint, the product's carbon footprint that they are consuming or they are wearing. So this is going to be something that's going to have to be factored into every single conversation going forward. Supply chain vulnerabilities. Obviously, there is a reshoring trend. I think it's been more talked about than actioned over the last 3 or 4 years, but we're certainly beginning to see more people looking at reshoring. But there's absolutely no question of doubt that the geopolitical situation is not going to ease unless Donald waves his magic wand, or does something even more dramatic. But it's not going to ease. So this is a factor we're going to be having to live with for some time to come. Okay, so I'm sort of rushing through this a little bit, but then you need to adapt rapidly to market demands. So people are looking for customized products, mass customization, faster lead times, and this all requires agile technology-driven product and production solutions, more automation and more robotics. 24 trends still. So energy was one of the big issues starting at the beginning of the year. Obviously, it's calmed down a little bit, but manufacturers need to ring fence and look after their energy strategy more than they have done in the past. You need to minimize waste and cut down on energy usage. So this balances the need for high output with sustainable, cost-effective operations. Energy, again, is all part of the carbon footprint issue and is not going away. My personal take on this is that if you view, I was listening to a chap called Professor Steve Evans from the Institute for Manufacturing the other day. I don't know if any of you have heard him speak. He is probably the most eloquent person I've ever heard of talking about manufacturing and sustainability. But he said, think of energy and energy savings and efficiency with your lean lens on. We all know lean came out of Toyota many years ago, but just look at energy and look at reducing waste, increasing productivity through that lean lens, and that will help you on that sustainability journey. There's a clear shift towards renewable energy sources. Clearly, it's an expensive operation to take on, but this has to be the future. And at the moment, largely, it's the larger organizations embracing this, but we're seeing manufacturers up and down the country with solar on the roof and starting to put up turbines and things. And I do think that will increase your energy resilience, but also reduce your carbon footprint. So again, it's something that I think you should all be thinking about, although I appreciate there are very high costs involved in that. IoT and AI-driven management systems have become popular. So this helps manufacturers to adjust operations and reduce energy waste. So this helps you hit your targets more efficiently and more easily. It's been touched on before, Steve particularly, cost-effective maintenance via predictive technology. So we've seen a marked increase in the use of tools that predict when machinery needs maintenance. This prevents energy waste from faulty or overworking equipment and reduces energy cost and extending equipment lifespan. I've touched on the next one already, but it's a really big issue. We have an aging workforce nearing retirement. I think the average age of an engineer now is 57. And you guys need to retain and transfer the knowledge of those people into the younger generations. This highlights a gap in technical and operational expertise. I touched on it again earlier. There's a shortage of digital and technical skill, and we are in competition with the likes of Google for the same kind of talent. Despite all of your best efforts, manufacturing is still not perceived as a particularly well-paid or interesting sector for these young people to get into, and this is something we've got to turn around. We're trying, I know everyone else here is trying, but it is absolutely vital that we do position manufacturing as a really exciting sector to be involved with. Again, Steve mentioned it, need continuous upskilling programs. It's all very well teaching, you've got to teach your existing staff digital competencies. You've got to move them up that step one at a time. You're not going to create an Einstein in one go, but if you keep moving people up the step, you will obviate some of the pressures caused by the skill crisis. Sorry. One of the things that I would seriously encourage you not to do is start literally just lifting people out of your competitors. It's a race to the bottom. We were approached by a large aerospace manufacturer who wanted to run a campaign with us this year, basically targeting the other aerospace manufacturers to get people out of there. And we said, no, it's a zero-sum game. If you adopt that approach, we're all going to suffer. There's an increasing demand for hybrid roles. And this is that blend of traditional engineering with digital and IT skills. And that's what we need to encourage more people into. Again, I've touched on global supply chain vulnerabilities. The problems globally are very visible. We've seen a real change, and this happened sort of during COVID and is continuing now, from a just-in-time to a just-in-case model, which is very counterintuitive to the sort of lean principles that you all grew up on. But again, it's something we're seeing quite significant at the moment. This clearly has profound implications on the amount of stock you're holding, and also your warehousing and logistics capabilities as well. Data-driven demand forecasting is another big trend we saw last year. Advanced analytics, AI-driven automation to help manufacturers predict demand fluctuations. Touched on it earlier again, but local and regional sourcing strategies. So, there is definitely a move to either reshore or nearshore, which gives you much more control over those supply chains. And real-time inventory management. This has increased the need for automated inventory systems to track stock levels and movement in real time. This helps you proactively address shortages and optimize stock levels for better supply chain balance. So, the autumn budget. Finally, and this is where I am getting political, and apologies, I think we've got a government that does understand, to a degree, the importance of manufacturing. Obviously, the national insurance increases are going to affect every single business in the country, and will have to be worn, or in some cases, we've already had to report factories looking to close as a result of it. But by and large, I think it was the most positive statement budget that we've had, certainly in the last 20 years, certainly in the 20 years that I've been involved in it. Some of the key headlines: enhanced tax relief for capital investment. So this will especially target advanced manufacturing and equipment and digital technologies. I was talking to the Department of Industry about their definition of advanced manufacturing, and I chaired our Leaders Summit last year, and I asked the 300 people in the room to put their hands up if they would describe themselves as unadvanced manufacturers, and 6 did. No one's quite actually defined for me what the difference in what is advanced manufacturing and who is not advanced. But anyway, advanced manufacturing was clearly a buzz phrase that governments had adopted, and there is money available. This will help you modernize your operations with hopefully reduced financial strain, and allowing for easier adoption of automation, robotics, and other productivity enhancing technology. So this tax relief will help UK manufacturers stay on a par. A lot of what they're doing is taking us to the level that everyone else is in Western Europe. But at least we're on the same playing field now. Clearly, anyone who read any part of the budget will be aware there's a huge focus on net zero, and there's funding for that as well. This government is very committed to this, and again, as I keep saying, the sustainability carbon footprint issues are not going away and need to be built into every single conversation you're having throughout your organization. I went to an organization called NCMT. They were Accolade Wines. They bottle all of the new wines in the UK virtually. And their staff view sustainability in the same way as they view health and safety. the staff walk in the morning, make sure that the operation is running in a safety compliant fashion, and then what can we do? What can we do to make this a more sustainable operation? They are now carbon net negative, which is an extraordinary achievement, so it can be done. So there's an extension of the apprenticeship levy, which is going to help as well. So again, I've been banging on about the need to get young, more diverse people into the sector, but this will make a difference. This will enable you to tailor your training programs to address the evolving needs of the industry, ensuring the workforce is equipped for digital-first manufacturing environments. So again, I think this is a really positive development for the UK's manufacturing sector. The autumn budget also included incentives for developing robust digital infrastructure. These incentives are very much aimed at supporting manufacturers in implementing technologies like IoT, AI, clearly the buzzword at the moment, and real-time data analytics, all of which will require high-speed connectivity. Digital upgrades are also part of the budget focus as well. So that's going to digital upgrades, and enhanced networks, are also part of the government's commitment thing. So lots of people were probably thinking this is all about the larger enterprises, but actually there was a lot of focus on SMEs as well, and Tom and various others have spoken about the importance of the SMEs to UK manufacturing and the country as a whole earlier. So these grants are designed to make it easier for smaller manufacturers to invest in advanced equipment, digital tools, workforce training in areas where large enterprises often have an advantage. So really important. So next year, very obviously, sustainability is right at the top of my agenda, our agenda, government's agenda, global agenda. That might change a little bit with Trump, and I haven't actually read anything about COP yesterday, but I'll be interested to see about that. But it has to be on it's a boardroom level agenda item, and it should be for every single one of you. We're an events business, and we're measuring our carbon footprint now. It's not pretty reading, but what they're talking about is incremental reductions. So you're not trying to go from there to there in one go. It's the direction of travel. Okay, so automation is clearly going to be a very important part of reducing carbon footprint. So again, playing to the FANUC story, I think it's part of that message. We can help reduce your carbon emissions by the greater adoption of automation and robotics. So we're also seeing circular economy was one of those buzz phrases about 7 or 8 years ago. Then went a bit quiet, but we're certainly seeing a lot more people talking about it now. So this is more about recycling, reuse, and the creation of longer-lasting products. As I said, about 5 or 6 years ago, probably pre-COVID, it was all the buzz, and it does seem to have gone a little bit quieter now. So increased digital transformation, I would say this, wouldn't I? That's what we're all about. That's what we were promoting. Like the automation and robotics numbers that Tom was referring to earlier, we are definitely behind the curve, but we are catching up. And I encourage you all to, I know, it's expensive. You've got to look at the blend between IT and OT and how that all merges together. But I really encourage you, in today's world, we have to invest in these technologies in order to compete. There's going to be greater integration of automation in supply chains. Again, going back to that fragility I was referring to earlier, which is not going to go away. Inventory management, procurement, logistics, and increasing end-to-end efficiency. So again, greater integration, greater collaboration, again, another phrase that one of the guys earlier used, is going to be critical moving forward. Again, mentioned earlier, a lot of these are very similar from last year, obviously, but there's going to be a greater stronger resilience through localized supply chains, regional sourcing and regional manufacturing. And the Mayor was talking about local hubs, and I think that's a really strong message to take away from here. There's going to be increased flexibility for rapid market changes. The market is changing at an incredible rate. And the ability to quickly pivot in response to demand fluctuations will be a top priority. And this is supported by adaptive automation programs. My final one is building stronger supplier partnerships. And it's not just your supply chain, it's that ecosystem. And again, the Airbus story, there was Cranfield, WMG, I mean, all sorts of organizations. It's very difficult for any of you to do this all by yourselves. You know, you need to talk with the MTA, MTC, Cranfield, or whatever, in order to stay abreast of what is world-class manufacturing now. They can advise, they can help, in some cases help fund. So I do think collaboration is a key phrase going forward. So just one quick sort of plug. So obviously we run the manufacturer. We have Smart Manufacturing Week in June at the NEC. FANUC are one of our largest sponsors, and I very much hope and ask you all to attend that in June next year. It'd be great to see you as my guests. Anyway, thank you for listening. A real whistle-stop tour. I hope it made some sense, and thank you very much.
Any questions?
We've got the panel debate now. So.
Yeah, so we've got that. Okay, right, wonderful. So, just have a few things I'd like to say. It's actually time for my favourite part of the whole event, is when we have these panel discussions, because it's really interactive. So if you're watching online, you can send those messages in. Or, of course, if you're here, we've got the microphone roaming round, so we'd love for you to get those questions to us on stage. Okay, so just one moment. Just giving you a heads up, after the panel discussion, and we are going live on FANUC Europe's LinkedIn and the FANUC UK Open House website, and then on MTD C&C's YouTube channel after the panel discussion. And when we've closed off here, we will then take you going live round the exhibition hall, and we'll be doing some podcasts later with some of the guests from today. So be interactive, send those messages in. It's not a problem at all. We love that. The more you get involved, the more successful the event is. Right, okay, so next up we've got Navigating the UK Landscape, the panel discussion with Henry Anson, Marco Cicin, Stephen Grace and Tom Bouchier. And whilst you come onto the stage, I'll just give everybody else a little bit of a heads up as to what they're going to be talking about. So if you'd like to welcome everyone onto the stage. So here we'll be having, oh yeah, we'll have a clap. Sorry. So here we're going to be having Henry chairing the panel discussion, and the focus is on automation adoption, what's missing, and what needs to happen within UK manufacturing to support higher adoption rates. Both Marco and Stephen will come from the larger blue chip manufacturer perspective, and Tom can provide an insight from those SMEs that FANUC are working with. All we encourage you to do, as I've already said, is just encourage as much audience participation as possible. It's a really exciting topic of discussion, and where you can get involved. It can sometimes get a bit heated, but we like that, don't we? We do. Yeah, we do.
We love heated.
There we go. There we go.
So, guys, panel discussions are great. I've got some questions to ask my fellow panelists, but I want input from the floor, please. These are much better if you are directing the questions or helping me direct the questions to the panelists. But just to kick things off, Tom, you mentioned those very depressing, right at the very start, those very depressing figures about UK automation and robotic adoption. Why are we? What is the reason? The figures are there, but why is this country, why is this manufacturing sector in the UK so far behind, relatively speaking, our peers in certainly Europe?
Well, I mean, there is a number of reasons. One of them, unfortunately, is that OEMs such as ourselves, and I shouldn't really say this with my boss here, but we haven't been very good at getting the message out on what automation can do. We assume people know what automation can do. So we need to get it to the SMEs. We have an awful lot of businesses in this country that are on the very S end of small. And they're too busy working in the business to work on the business. So we need to make that message easier for them to understand. We need to get to the owners of businesses and explain all of the advantages of automation. If you just look at the initial costs, then it doesn't always make sense. But if you look on the return on investment, if you look at the lifetime running costs, if you look at everything else that's involved in that picture, then it certainly becomes a different picture. So we need to get to the check signers to actually get that message across. We need to explain the advantages of it. I think what we can't do is we assume that some people will have been stung by an automation project 20 or 30 years ago that didn't do what it said it can do. As these guys will tell you now, automation can very much do what it says it's going to do. So we got to make sure that shows like this, where we get all partners involved, this isn't down to the OEMs, this is down to the academics, this is down to the manufacturers, this is down to the OEMs, this is down to institutes that can help us, this is down to the manufacturer, this is down to the MTA, MTC, all of the people we talked about. We're only going to fix this through collaboration. We're growing, which is great, but we're not growing at the same percentage as the people that are bigger than us. And if the German market's 10 times bigger than us at the moment, a 1% growth for them is going to vastly outweigh a 3% growth for us. Even my limited O-level maths has told me that. So we need to make sure we accelerate the growth. It's all good news. Like I said earlier on, we have everything we need here. We have fantastic manufacturers. We have fantastic workforce. We have everything. We just need to make sure we get that why it's important to, as opposed to why they can't afford automation. Everybody tells you they can't afford it. I'm saying you can't afford not to have it. That's where we need to get to. We need to change the mindset.
Marco, can you talk about that collaborative network you built up with your program, and what was the genesis of that? Who drove it? Who invited the partners in? What was the process?
So the specifically for the programs like AutoRamp, we're using the catapult centers to actually do a lot of the work that is related to R&T and R&D level. So we're trying to bring up all the technology to the right maturity, so we can actually implement on the next programs. The network, quite frankly, was already there. It was. I feel like perhaps we were not tapping into it as much as we should have. I mean, you can get very focused on what you're doing today, and very easily dismiss what we need to do for the future. So, in us signing on to that as well, getting into partnerships with the MTC, with Cranfield, with the University of Sheffield, et cetera, we're actually bringing in things for the future as much as we're doing the things on a day-to-day basis. So there's a duality there, right? We need to attend to our orders that we have today, but we also need to look into what's coming into the future. And I would admit that we haven't been, great at that over the last few years, and I think we're actually getting much better at it now that we have these partnerships going forward.
Steve, you mentioned 140 sites globally, I think. If each of those are talking to their MTC or whatever, how on earth is that collated and pulled into best practice?
Yeah, and that's a little bit of a challenge, actually, listening to Marco there. We're probably a little bit further behind Marco in terms of that pipeline of innovation into reality. And for those of you, technology readiness levels is a useful tool for thinking about it, but we're very used to dealing at the back end. And when it comes to collaborating globally, the challenge is that not every region at the moment, we're talking to each other, and we are reinventing the wheel a little bit. We're not being smart, but also the challenges are different by the regions as well. Like I mentioned before, the different cost structures drive different imperatives, so it isn't an easy solution. But a lot of the areas that have catapults or similar processes like that, obviously Germany was infamous for that. There's a little bit in the US that's starting to come up. Really engaging with those. We've already seen in this case this last year, we've been working with them in the last 6 months. Once you're in, it's amazing what you can see that you weren't aware of that was there. So just a little plug in the UK for the Catapult Network. Get involved, because once you get involved, it opens some doors for a lot of more interesting opportunities for you.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Right.
Gentleman here.
Talking about the catapult centres and direct collaboration with the universities, which one do you see the most benefit from when you compare them, or Innovate UK grants, or anything across that whole range from the government support?
You want to take that first, or should I go first?
Go first.
I thought you were further along the pipeline than I was. So at the moment we're partnering. I think that obviously they've all got slightly different perspectives. At the moment we're starting with the MTC because there's general smart manufacturing, and then AMRC from a subtractive processes perspective. But literally, we're talking about this is sort of year zero for us in terms of our partnership. So that's where we've started so far.
I think we need to. Sorry, Marco, go. So I just want to say that I think we need to put the right people in the right program. So I cannot expect any of the catapult centers to be the final integrators for a solution that is going to go into production, which is usually the misunderstanding as it goes. They're really good at providing tier L to tier L3 technologies that we can then mature into production level areas, but right now we're still understanding where those centers stand on that, because not everybody's the same. So there are elements of that, and the MTC, for example, is very different from some of the universities as well. So it's getting the right people in the right program every single time, which basically is the challenge here.
I think the answer is it's up to us to join up all of these institutions, not the manufacturers. You need to be able to come to any place and hear the same message. So you don't know if you should go to the MTC, the AMRC, any of those. It's not your job. It's our message to get that across. It's all going to depend on the maturity of the business and where you are in that automation journey is who you need to talk to. So if we can get politicians, academic institutions, manufacturers, OEMs, everybody together, then it's easy to give that message. So, I mean, the MTC have got some extremely clever people, some fantastic stuff that's going on there, but maybe it's a bit too blue sky if you really need to know how to do your job now. But we need to answer all those questions. We need to not just change where we are now, we need to change our future. So we need to have that blue sky stuff, because in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, that's going to be what's going on that we're all using. So we have to answer all of it, but they are all of equal importance, I would say. Yeah. It's up to us to join them together and make sure that we get a united message out.
But with funding from places like Innovate UK, they seem to focus much more on the SME. The expectation for any LE then is that you fund this yourself. You're big enough, you've got enough capital behind you. Do you somehow feel though that's unfair in some way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to answer the funding question completely in the UK. And we need to make sure that funding is far more pragmatic than it is now. I mean, in other countries, it goes direct to source. Sometimes again, it's probably like automation. If you don't know what funds are available, you don't know how to go after them. So we need to make sure that is answered as well. So we need the banks, the financiers involved in this clusters groups as well, because it needs to be, there is an awful lot, the last government and this government have put an awful lot of money there, but not all of it's been taken up because nobody knew how to get it or what it was. So that's a terrible message that we haven't got out. Whereas in Germany, I believe, they were a lot more pragmatic, went to the big companies, went to the medium-sized guys, and filtered it down through the supply chain. It's a much easier way of doing it than saying, we're going to make a fund available. We're not going to tell you what it is or how to get it, but it's there. We need to change that whole thinking.
What about things like Brexit that have affected Horizon 2020 and some of the much larger innovation sponsors for projects? Do you think we're going to be missing out? Because 1 minute we're in, 1 minute we're out, and nobody really knows where we're going to be over the next 5 years. Is this affecting strategy?
I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say Brexit wasn't the smartest move we ever made as a country.
You're not talk political again.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking political.
Not being political, but you guys, how's this affecting your wider strategy?
You'll get me onto the national insurance crisis.
It is affecting. I mean, I think that the way we do operations have changed, over the last few years since Brexit came into place. But we do support a lot of those initiatives, both centrally and locally. So I signed myself a few letters of support over the year, over 1 year, just with specific groups that bring technology that has potential. It's not just about technology for the sake of technology. If it's something that we see potential, even if it's not immediate, we will support it. And so we work together with those small companies in order to get to that point as well.
I guess just to turn it around, how should we address the financing? What's needed? How would you recommend, or where would you recommend we inject it? Or they inject it?
The focus needs to be actually at system integrators. Having worked previously as an R&D consultant, I've helped a lot of businesses get funding, and I've helped industrialise these processes from prototype. So having worked from TRL level sort of 3 and 4 all the way up to 9, the problem, I agree, is that how do companies know how to get this money? And the reality is, as system integrators, you should be saying, we can help you develop a solution, and it's going to cost $250,000, but you can get 50% of that funded through Innovate UK, so therefore your exposure is halved. That is the ideal way to do it, but unfortunately that also then pushes risk then on the system integrators of doing an R&D project, which has to be innovative, therefore it's the first of something that you're doing. You're owning more risk than just selling a standard solution. The risk needs to be shared as well as the funding to cover the job, to cover the project. There's no government strategy that's saying, we will help you absorb the risk. We're just saying, here's half the money towards it.
So the issue we run into normally is that after TRL 6, there's no more funding coming in. And so we end up with something that may or may not be still good for production, and then we need to find the money to actually get it through, and that is the challenge here, right? So there seems to be like a valley there that we just sometimes don't find a way to get through, because it's just not possible to get the money for.
Anyone else from the floor? Lady.
I'd also like to say, if you're watching online, please feel free to send your questions in. We do have them. It comes straight through to my phone, and I can ask the panel as well.
Hi, just thinking about the sort of recruitment shortage and the skills issue. Henry, I think you said the average age of an engineer or someone working in the manufacturing engineering industry is 57.
That measures me.
Surely not. No. And how hard it is to recruit young people into the industry now, competing with the likes of Google and Amazon and Apple and such like. If we think about manufacturing companies, particularly SMEs maybe, who aren't automating and who aren't integrating robotics, digital technology, how much harder does that make the recruitment drive for them?
I think significantly harder. I mean, it's so frustrating. Manufacturing pays better at like-for-like level than other sectors. There's a perception still that it's, turning lids on cans and things, and it's not. It's innovative, it's exciting. A lot of the problem lies with the elder generation, it's the school teacher level, I think, and the parents level, about encouraging younger people into manufacturing, because it's nothing like that dirty smokestack perception that people have, and it's exacerbated at SME level.
If you look at the World Skills final that's happening here at the moment, that's really innovative and sort of future manufacturing right there happening. I think that's what people need to see more, isn't it, at younger level?
I totally agree.
Yeah. And Marco, we've spoken before about this a little bit previously, so I hope you don't mind me saying, but from Airbus's point of view, I think, sort of trying to attract the best talent, the automation project that you led was quite helpful in that sense.
It's been very challenging to staff the teams. So I tripled the size of my team over the last 2 years. Rough numbers, I saw probably 1,000 CVs, out of which I only interviewed maybe 50 people, just to select 3. So there's a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of people that want to work. A lot of them don't have the skills or the experience that we needed, and so it makes it really challenging for us to get the people in. We're not in the business of poaching people from anyone else, but the people that we need already have jobs. Like you said, they're working in Google's, your Teslas, your SpaceX of the world. We can't compete with that level of salaries or anything like that. We compete also on the kind of job you do, and also the passion you have for the job you're actually doing. So it makes it challenging, right? Is the right people with the right stuff. If I say it may be a bit of a cliche, but we need the right kind of people to do the work that we do. And also, I do feel I'm not 57, but I do feel that there's a generational gap between myself and the people that come right behind me. Like back in my day, I was staying late every day, or a system needed to be deployed before such deadline. I'm not sleeping that week, most likely. People nowadays don't want to do that, and why would they if they can find another job that is more cozy, maybe making more money, working from home? That's not automation. So that's not to say that it's going to be only that, but there's times of high rate of work that you need to get through, and nowadays it's difficult to find people that have that same passion for what we do today.
It's interesting listening. I completely agree with Henry's comment, by the way, about like the brand perception of manufacturing seems flawed. But what I would say is I see glimmers of hope, and some of your comments, by the way, about the different behaviours we're perhaps going to need to adjust to as we go forward. I am interested by some of these different pathways now coming up. We're less obsessed with perhaps the degree. We've got lots more opportunities to come through in different ways, and that's a glimmer of hope that I think we've got there. We just got to make sure people are aware of that, because to your right, to the point, it's not about being paper smart. There's lots of attributes to smartness or capability, whatever the way you want to put that, and that comes through in different ways. I think having that broader understanding of how you can bring them alive and give people the qualifications and experience to deliver.
And I think as well, letting people see what manufacturing is like today. Right. So the young people that are here today doing the World Skills finals, they've gone through a lot of stages to get to this point, and publicising that, getting that out there to their peers and other young people, I think is really important.
The issue is patience. Like in a big company like Airbus, you don't get to see the thing that you're designing for years potentially, right? And so people are now used to this very short cycle of rewarding, and instant gratification, and that's just not the way things happen in a company like this, right? You just sign it, you take all the risk away, and that could take years until you actually get it implemented. People just nowadays don't stay that long in a job. So obviously, if you're working on spreadsheets and PowerPoint slides all the way through, you don't get to see the full implementation cycle. But in order to get to that point, besides the hard work, you need patience to actually see the thing through.
I would also say, if I can just jump in, that I think the message is now getting out there. I think it hasn't for a lot of years. I think a lot of younger people at school, at various education levels, are seeing that manufacturing, engineering, all the subsectors of it are a viable career path. Yes. I think we're also getting the message out that it's not the dull, dirty stuff that's going on now. There is people that will go into an engineering role and may never see a shop floor. They're still in an engineering role. So we're making it much more visible, the range of careers that are within engineering. It's not just working directly on the shop floor. It can be a whole range, from very, very high-tech stuff to any subcomponents, to anything. You can, and I'm also finding that if I go to schools now, instead of maybe 20 years ago, there might have been 10% of the people that would say they could consider a role in manufacturing. It's probably well over 50% now, because they know what is there. They also hear the message that we're getting out there, that it is quite well paid. They're also hearing that if you go into apprenticeships, it's not a barrier to getting anywhere in your career further down the line. So there is a huge amount of stuff. I mean, I think my boss, we all came through a technical route. I mean, I was an apprentice. You come through that route. It's no barrier to getting anywhere that you choose to be. We need both. We need to sort of the higher skilled people going that way. We need more pragmatic skills going this way. We also need to make sure, when we're talking about upskilling, that we're only talking about small steps. You only need to move one step up. And if we move everybody one step up, we've fixed the skills problem. And if we're doing a really bad job, if most people can't use technology now, maybe integrating it, maybe designing it, maybe doing everything else is higher skilled, but it should be those people that are making it easier to be used. So we don't really need to reskill that much. But we do need to make people aware that it is tiny, tiny steps. Or I think it is anyway.
There's no doubt in my mind that the public perception of manufacturing is changing for the positive, but it is coming from a long way back. So there's an enormous amount of work to be done. And we work very closely with Make UK and their National Manufacturing Day in September is something I encourage you all to embrace. It's a collectively opening up your factories on a certain day to encourage school kids around. It's all very well the Northeast doing it on one day and the Southwest doing it 2 months later. If we can have this sort of one day where we're showcasing our factories, I think that's going to really help.
Sorry, still on the topic of young people, Do you feel that those coming out of technical colleges and universities actually have the right skills that are useful?
Anybody else?
I mean, I think, only comment, I don't, obviously, so I'm, hard to say fully because I don't have exposure directly to all of the different entry routes into the business, right? What I would say is that I'm really enjoying now, like I've already mentioned, the apprenticeship route, that we're bringing in a lot more. We have a whole spectrum of these different academic and pathways, if you want to call it like that. I still find it challenging because we just don't have enough. So it is, and we do have some high levels of churn, if everyone's happy with that terminology, at some of the stages where people don't like some of the different behaviors, perhaps. And I don't want to sit here and talk about like neoclassical perceptions of manufacturing or neoclassical behaviors and definition of hard work, right? Because that is very nuanced, and also I think there is some element of change that we've got to happen to adjust and adopt. But yes, I think generally we're okay. Do we have a higher level of churn when those people come in, they do 6 months, go, I don't like it, they make me work hard, would be one voice you might hear. I don't think that's a universal. It's not like everyone's coming in and going, gosh, this work stuff's terrible. I don't want to project that.
Are they coming in with the right skills?
Overall, I would say yes, particularly with the choices we're now starting to see with the apprenticeship programs, because they're opening up a lot of more, digital skills and some of the controls and mechatronics stuff that we need.
I would say they absolutely do have the skills. I think you've got to remember that education is just a starting point of coming into a bit. That you're not getting a fully rounded employee. You are getting people we have to keep skilling. So the skill level that they're starting to come on with is a lot higher than it used to be. So yes, they absolutely do have the skills. What we do need to do is make sure that we give more modern equipment for them to learn on, so they're not learning on something that they'll never see when they get out into the workplace. But that's a totally different thing. That's not the people, or that's not the students. I think younger people now have a great attitude towards technology, a great attitude to some of the jobs. I agree, maybe they wouldn't do the hours that we used to do, or the jobs we used to do, but that shouldn't be necessary. That's my job to make sure people don't have to do that. That's not their fault, that's my fault. Or not my fault, the manufacturers. But we need to make sure that we nurture them better than we are. And what we're trying to do here with our apprentice program is make sure that we give them as many skills as we can. But that's a constant thing. That's not, they don't hit 21 and we stop. That has to carry on. And we need to make sure we're at the cutting edge of whatever's going on, because my bosses in Japan are going to keep producing newer and newer equipment, more and more technology, higher and higher stuff that we have to use. So we need to make sure our people are constantly trained. I mean, I don't suppose anybody would learn. So yes, they are at a fantastic starting point, but we just got to remember it is a starting point. That's all it always has been.
Yeah, so Tom makes a great point there. This might be anecdotal, but I teach at university too, and it's a master's degree in robotics. Every year we get, 25 students. It's been growing for the last few years. By the time the students finish, they all have jobs. These jobs are in high demand. And although I'm looking for a foundational level of skills that we need in people, obviously we need people to know robotics and all this stuff, I've also learned that you can teach attitude. You can teach skill. But if the person doesn't have the attitude, then that's not a person that I need in my team, because it's just not going to produce to the level that we're expecting to. So we need people that have the right attitude, that are ambitious to do so, and that will take that skill and keep growing that into the future. So, but yeah, to go back to what I said, like the skill, especially in robotics, is highly coveted right now. We just don't. We cannot produce enough students to cover all the jobs that we actually need.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak only from my own experience. I started off as an electrical technician doing maintenance and progressed all the way through my career to a PhD. And it's great that organisations are prepared to sponsor that. Absolutely. And I think we need to see more of it, really. Like you say, take people on at graduate level, but allow them the opportunity to either progress technically through an organisation. So yeah, I do agree with a lot of what you're saying.
I mean, I think whenever I do talks at the moment, I try to make sure that when I'm talking about education, I'm talking about the C-suite people that need to know what's needed underneath them. We have great technical abilities in this country. We have great engineers. We have great everything. What we need to do is make sure we give more of a chance to keep progressing to get to where they need to do. But that's all one step at a time, just one step. But if we change the decision makers' attitude towards education, if all of the manufacturers, all of the OEMs, everybody takes their fair share of apprentices so that they can move around and learn skills at different companies, different ways of doing things. I mean, years ago, and I'm probably the oldest one on stage, you could get hundreds of apprenticeships. I could have moved to any company and got an apprenticeship. We need to get that again, because then we give them the skills in one place, they move on and grow their skills, grow their skills, grow their skills.
Yep. Yeah.
You need to actually get more exposure to grow those skills. That's where we're missing, is that everybody's not investing at the beginning, and then the continuation of the education. The people that are doing it now are doing it very, very well. We need a wider base of companies doing it.
Any more questions? I'd just like to make a comment, if that's okay. So I do agree totally, and I think the obsession with people getting going to university is fading a bit now. Obviously, tuition fees, and they are going up fairly significantly. Surely it's going to make apprenticeships a much more attractive option. You get paid, you learn, and you're on a career path, rather than pick up. I think my son picked up 55 grand's worth of debt in a 4-year course. I mean, it's got to make it more attractive.
Took me years longer than that on other stuff to get that sort of debt.
Yeah. Can I come back to the question of collaboration? And we talked about collaborating with academic bodies and various other institutions and things. Tom, we haven't prepped this at all. Do you collaborate with other vendors? You do not have the entire solution to Steve's problem or to Marco's problem. Will you work with a collection of vendors?
Absolutely.
And can you articulate some of the examples where you have?
If you look at the exhibitors that are here, a lot of them are other stuff that is peripheral to our equipment.
Yeah.
They will be dealing with all robot companies, with all machine tool companies, with all injection molding companies, and that's fine. I know that everybody in this room can probably name the major players in each of those markets. It's not a secret. Yeah. What I need to do is make sure we grow the market. I'm happy with our market share. I'd much rather 30% of a much bigger market would suit me a lot better. And the only way we're going to do that is to make sure it is all together. I mean, those people that are downstairs in the showroom at the moment, yes, they're advocates of FANUC, and yes, these guys can be advocates of FANUC, but they also know the other companies that are there, what they can do, how they can do it. And they need to hold all of us to account to make sure we get that message. And that's what I was saying earlier on. It's only through collaboration. I'm only going to help to grow this market with the help of everybody else. And we all have to sing off that same hymn sheet on why it's important for UK PLC to grow. It's not going to grow individually. We've all spent too long holding on to our own little bit of the market and trying to, consider everybody else to be the enemy as opposed to somebody that's in the same sector as we are that's trying to grow it as well. And we need to make sure that we get that. And I'd happily share the stage with all the other robot companies up here and tell you who they are. I'm happy that you all look smart enough to know we're the best. I'll leave that to you. I'm happy to tell you who they are. That's fine. It's not a secret. We need, and it's only by them and us participating and helping each other that we will grow. I know I might overuse the word collaboration, but it is down to collaboration with all partners. So all sectors, all educational facilities, all government, local mayors, metro mayors, MPs, everybody. And again, if you were here earlier on, please canvass them. Make sure we hold them to account as well. The government needs to get more strategies in place, more pragmatism in their strategies, get a lot more meat on some of those bones on what some of these their strategy is. But at least they know that you need to join more than one thing together to have a strategy, which was obviously missing in the last government. So we need to make sure, hold them to account, challenge them. Do it here, challenge us now, what we need to do. That's what we're invited. The only way we're going to move it on is you tell me what we're missing. If we're missing something to make you, I can give you all the facts and figures. I can tell you which country does what, where it's done best, where the finance is, whatever else. But if that's not what you need to hear, tell us. I can only tell you what I think you need to hear. You need to tell me what is actually missing and what you need. And we'll only do that by all working together. Sorry, I overran there for a couple of minutes.
I clearly picked the scab there.
Yes, you did. I'll start on the national insurance in a minute.
No, don't take us offline for that one.
Thank you. So just on that national insurance question.
I think it's a great thing. I got 3 days to get through. I'm not blowing up this morning.
Yeah.
So you touched on strategies there and how in the last government it was very fragmented. This government seems to be doing something positive around an industrial strategy. But typically strategies are long term and they transcend more than one parliamentary session. What initiatives could be undertaken in order to make sure those strategies are longer lasting, do you think? How do we do that? Because you come to the next.
Make UK are calling for a royal commission, and I think that's important. And I think I've addressed a base committee down, a cross-party base committee down in Westminster, and I think it is important we make it non-party political. I think it's too important to be party political. We can't have this 5-year cycle, 10-year cycle, whatever that cycle is. So what we need to do is the grown-ups in Westminster need to get together, make it so that they're all involved in it, set that strategy that everybody is happy to move forward with and carry it on. Because what we don't want to do is 5 years' time, 10 years' time, somebody else get in and change it back again. Because then we're just going round on this hamster wheel and getting absolutely nowhere. So I think a royal commission would be, I mean, I don't know enough about what a royal commission does, but I know that it will involve all the parties involved in it, so that if we do take it forward, it will happen. So I think that's vital, and that's vital for manufacturers, because I guess, I mean, me selling automation equipment is maybe a one-off thing, a two-off thing, a three-off thing. If you're making these things for 10 years' time for your 10-year order book, which I guess I should order my plane now, should I, if it's 10
yeah,
years?
Sure.
But no, we need to make sure that we get everybody on that thing and make sure. So I would say if we are going to canvass anybody, canvass a royal commission, canvass a joined up strategy that government can't interfere with too much once it's moved.
So how do you even start that process?
Sorry, just my understanding is that Invest 35, the Labour government are now talking to all the other parties about making it completely apolitical, regardless of Make UK's thing. So that is their intention, is to remove it from the political agenda. It's a set 10-year strategy that I imagine would roll. James, you probably know more about this than I do, so I'm going to put you on the spot.
Do you want a mic, James? I think the other thing about the current government, though, is Rachel Reeves was the chair of that base committee on industrial automation. So we've actually got someone in the right place now that understands a bit about automation and what manufacturing means to the country.
Thank you very much for offering for a little contribution from me. But I think that one thing that might help, and this is a personal opinion rather than that of the MTA, is that if we've got an economic vision of which manufacturing is a key part of enabling, then I think that it will be much easier to make it multi-decade. Because if we're all continue to be partisan, because we all have our passions and we all want to make our sector grow and so forth, we just create tensions. And if we really want to go forward as a nation, we have to have a vision of which the strategy is derived from. But for what it's worth, thank you.
And I think that 23% of GDP helps focus the mind on that, as opposed to the 8% of GDP by the current measurements or by the traditional measurements. So it's too big, it's too important. And manufacturers stood up for everything during COVID. These guys were making things that was really needed during those periods. Manufacturers are vital to this country, so vital. 64 million people, we need to make stuff. I think. Anybody want to argue with it? Carry on.
No.
These two will carry on for me. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Diogo from NRL. You mentioned you want to be more leaders in the manufacturing world. one of the things that we actually touched out a bit earlier was labour. How do you think we can be more of a leader in manufacturing when labour is cheaper in Asia, for example?
Labour's cheaper in Asia, but automation is also a lot higher. Asia isn't relying on cheap labour anymore. It is cheaper, but not so much. I mean, FANUC's biggest customer is China. They're by far the biggest user of automation. So we will get over if labour is only a couple of % of our increased productivity, then it doesn't really matter. It's not the be-all and end-all. At the moment, if we're making everything by hand, the labour cost is a massive portion of it, therefore it is an inhibitor. If it's only a very small part of the overall cost, it's not an inhibitor. So what we need to do is make sure that we understand that the need for automation it's not to get rid of people, it's to grow productivity with the same number of people. That's basically what it is. And if you grow, then obviously you're going to need more people in other skilled jobs to do it as well. So yeah, I don't think the cost of labour over here is, I mean, Germany's a higher cost economy than we are, and they're making more bits, or that they do when the car companies are burning. So yeah, no, we need to accept that labour isn't, if you use enough automation, labour is not part of the problem.
So what do you think, what other sectors do you think we can save money on, for example, to make products in the UK cheaper, for example?
All of the traditional manufacturing that we have over here, everybody can produce it. I think what the message that we fail to get across is that automation can be for one-man bands. It can be for the owner, operator, director of that company. It will improve his job. So what we need to do is get that return on investment, get that lifetime running cost, get the other decisions for him to make. So everybody, there is nobody that will not benefit from more automation. Anybody's automation, especially FANUC's, everybody will benefit from. So we need to just keep harping on that message. Labour isn't the problem. I know we don't have a massive unemployment number, 4%, 4.1%, whatever it is. If we look at, what would they call them now, the economically inactive, that's like 11% or whatever else. So we do have a lot of labour pool here that we can get back into using the automation that's there. We have everything. We're missing nothing except the confidence to go for it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the message of this all, it's educating, isn't it? Educating the apprentices, educating suppliers, collaborations, customers, from as big as Airbus down to, I suppose, John down the road. Absolutely. It's educating everybody, and I think events like this really go a long way.
And I think these guys said it earlier on, every one of those companies has a different need. They're all in a different place. What the government needs to do is take away tax incentives as being their only bullet. Because if you're a small company with no money, getting money off next year's tax bill is not an awful lot of use. So we need to get more pragmatic on how we use government money. The money is there, but it can't be, I mean, if you've haven't got the money to invest in a machine, saying you will increase your productivity and get it off next year, it's a gamble I wouldn't take probably if I was in a lot of those places. So we've got to make sure that they understand that they can get the funding easier, that they can grow the productivity and then pay the tax bill. The tax bill will get bigger on more productivity, making more parts. It's
a win-win.
I'll get off my high.
I heard a comment last week. I didn't realise that we had quite in the UK had the reputation of make, do, amend quite as much. And this may help to your point. And we were talking about some machine tools and how we pride ourselves on keeping things going. But the reality is probably there's some times when we should have invested, moved forward, got that better machine tool that's going to be faster, quicker, higher quality, with a higher productivity. And it made me reflect a lot on that kind of zeitgeist, is that the right word I'm looking for, that we might have. And we might have to challenge ourselves a little bit to be thinking about those sort of underpinnings which sort of drive a lot of our culture and behaviour in our manufacturing. But
absolutely. But we do have to look at both, sorry. There is, I mean, from a sustainability point of view, we do have to repair things. Right. We do have to make sure we use it. What you've got to do is look at how much more energy savings, carbon footprint, everything, new technology will compare to old technology.
Very good.
Don't chuck away old technology just because it's old. But if the new technology gives it an advantage, don't do the make, mend and make do. make the decision then to get rid of it because it's a false economy to keep it at that stage.
Yeah. That was a better way of saying what my point was, by the way. That thing.
I
don't know what I said.
Make, do, and mend is a national sort of characteristic. I went to a well-known biscuit manufacturer the other day, and they showed me the oldest operational oven in the world. I mean, how efficient is that going to be? You know, I mean, you know, it was wonderful. It was gorgeous to look at, but seriously,
Absolutely, absolutely.
Just another point to touch on as well,
Yes.
breakdowns. Of course, we can't guarantee that every single robot you produce, I suppose, is going to be
As good as
100%.
ours. Oh, is that? I thought that's. Oh, sorry, I was finishing for you.
So, for example, you know, there's a breakdown in the robot stuff months old or the machinery. How do you think it's best to go about preparing for breakdowns and minimizing those breakdowns?
I mean, I can only speak for FANUC here now on the breakdown. Sorry, guys, but FANUC's global mission is that service first is our priority now. We are only going to grow FANUC. Marco's only going to grow FANUC Europe. Japan is only going to world by making sure these products are in production. They have to work. So there are strategies around to have a under 12-hour response time anywhere in the world, in any time zone, whatever that equipment is. We're not at it, to be honest, but we've probably dropped 8 or 10 hours from where we were to where we're aiming at. Is to have 100% of the parts locally, so we can get, there's no point getting an engineer and no part. But it's also about the manufacturers making things that are more reliable. I think Mr. Ghirardello is going to talk Thursday about we're potentially going to a 5-year, 8-year warranty, so you can know the lifetime, and we're that confident in our product that we're able to do it. So you know, if we can give the business owners to say, you've now got the product, you've got 8 years worth of maintenance, and you've got 8 years worth of warranty. That's your cost of your lifetime. You do not have to spend anything else unless the roof falls on it or something that's outside our control. We will fix that. And if we can guarantee to go for under 12 hours, under 8 hours, I think we can probably, in the UK, we can probably get down to about 6 hours. I think is possible because, you know, if you're in Russia and you've got 7 time zones and you need a flight, it's very hard to get 6 hours. But over here, we're centrally located, we can do it. So and it's FANUC's mission to always support the manufacturers. It's FANUC's mission that you decide the lifetime of that product, not me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to keep it for 20 years, you keep it for 20 years and we will support it. We guarantee to support it wherever you put it in the world.
Just to carry on from that as well, as most people in this room could probably relate to during COVID, it wasn't necessarily the service, it was getting the parts, getting those spares. Sometimes the lead time went from 1 to 2 weeks or maybe in stock to a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think, if COVID was to happen again, touch wood it doesn't, how do you think it's going to be, how would we deal with that so that downtime doesn't happen again? Because not necessarily the 8-year warranty, it's if the machine's down, people are losing a lot of money in the machine's down. So how are we going to go about it in the future?
From our point during COVID, nobody had that big a breakdown because we carried 90% of the parts here. We had all the service engineers working the whole way through COVID because a lot of the injection moulding people were supplying parts for COVID, so we had to keep working. So we had the parts, and we could also get the parts from Luxembourg to make up the difference between what we had here and the 100%. So we would, if COVID happened again, I pray to God it doesn't, but I think we are in a position where everybody is probably more prepared than they were. I think with our business strategy that we had with Service First, we were probably more prepared than some other people were going into it. But I think everybody is of that opinion now. I mean, you have to think of the unthinkable to get to where we need to be.
The resilience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I do agree with you, but however, so we speak to a few of our customers still, and they're still being very much reactive rather than proactive. So instead of stocking some motors or HMIs in their shelves, they're still waiting for that breakdown. So our message is to let's be proactive rather than reactive and stock your shelves up. How do you think these companies should go about it with budgeting? So this is more a question for you guys at Airbus and Cummins. How do you guys go about stocking your shelves so if a downtime does happen? And how do you think we should tell our customers to go about it as well?
I was just going to talk about data. I mean, the issue, I mean, we're on a journey, like many of us, to try and understand what digital manufacturing means and how we're going to leverage things like condition-based monitoring. And this is a bit broader than perhaps robots, but obviously it's great that the robots can tell us things about what current usage is going on and how motors and drives and bearings are all starting to fail. So we're trying to figure out how to use that, because to me, it's a mathematical problem right now. And we're not there, by the way. I don't want to project that we've solved this one. And I was going to throw AI in. Is that cool? When I throw AI in, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But what we are trying to figure out is how we get better at that, what the data sources are. So a lot of our work now is trying to build what we're sort of terming our digital foundation, so we can actually pull the data off the machine to then actually start driving that assessment of what those drives and controls are. So it's maybe not the direct answer you wanted, but that's where we're trying to approach it right now, to be a sort of analytical based answer in response to what we should carry and hold.
And how about for yourselves at Airbus?
So we don't need to be careful here. We don't stock many things. We only stock the things that are consumables, right? I said earlier in the presentation that we get about 2.5 million parts every day. So you can imagine that the logistics of that are absolutely crazy. It's impossible to figure out how this works, if it's not well organized. So we don't stock, parts that we can find from our suppliers. Also, I should say, like, I used to work for another OEM that is not yellow. Sorry.
We all make mistakes, Mark.
Yeah, I know we do. Robots don't break down. I mean, the system breaks down a lot. Don't get me wrong. I was on the road all the time. But the robots themselves are actually very reliable. I think the mean time to failure on one of our FANUC robots is like 25 years.
Yeah.
Something crazy like that. So the problem is that the robot is the thing that is moving. If that is not moving, then you tend to believe that, well, that's broken. Is 80% of the cases, and this may be anecdotal, is something, a signal that is not coming to the robot, and that therefore the robot is not doing what it's supposed to do. So we're not worried about stocking motors and things for the robot, because we know that the OEMs will have that readily, if necessary. But we will be stocking, like I said, we drill 100 million holes. We do have millions and millions and millions of fasteners at any point of any day of any factory, because we know that we're going to need those. And also, by the way, a lot of those are not within tolerance, so we actually want to throw away a good chunk of those too, as we get through that stock as well. And a lot of that stuff has a lifetime, so we cannot use a fastener that's been in storage for a year. And we will obviously rely on our partners and suppliers to get our parts if it's such a case that something might have a catastrophic failure.
That's his previous hat talking again. The other thing we need to do is educate people about what we can tell you now is the data collection. I don't know if you've seen the ZDT downstairs here, which is our zero downtime, or the ZDT if you talk from the people that made it. It's making that trust that we can tell you, predict where you are going to go. And we can predict that in plenty of time to stop downtime. That's what we need to do, is not repair it quick, it's to stop it. Fix it next Saturday if you know it's going to fail, as opposed to wait until the following Tuesday and lose hours. There's a trust element in that, because you have to believe the data you're getting. But I believe in one of the automotive companies, they tested it a few times, and the failure happened within a tolerance of acceptable tolerance of when we said it was going to happen. Now they don't let it happen. If it says it's going to happen, they change it. Everybody's got production window, everybody's got maintenance windows, rather, everybody's got downtime. Repair it at the time. Stop downtime. Zero downtime. It's a pretty good name for that software. It really is our aim, because again, as you would have known with your previous company, if the robot stops, it's always a robot fault. Yep. Doesn't matter what's gone on around it. Doesn't matter somebody's knocked the power out down the road, the robot stopped. It's not true. So get that data to prove where you need to be. But it is available now, and it's widely available on other equipment as well. I mean, you could use ZDT on your FANUC automation, but there's a lot of other monitoring systems that are there for the rest of the motors, for the tracks, for everything that we can't give you, so everything we can't monitor. So it is about condition monitoring is far more important now than it's ever going to be. If you want to get to no downtime, then it doesn't matter how long the motor is, because if it takes me a week to get it from Japan, as long as I can get it to you before it breaks down, there's not an issue.
Okay, I think we're on time to maybe stop the discussion. However, what I will say is positive news is as we're streaming, after this, you will be able to watch content from us going around the exhibition hall. And then after that, we will be doing a podcast, which is wonderful news. So if anyone can join in on the podcast, and if you're watching online or anybody else has any further questions, then feel free to speak to the team. Okay, so can we just say a huge thank you to all of you sitting here on the stage, so Henry, Tom, Marco, and Stephen. Thank you. And for everybody here, of course, you've got the World Skills that we'd love for all of you to go and visit, to see with your own eyes, so you can go away and talk about these incredible people who have so much passion for industry. And there's also all the machines that you can see, but also meet the service engineers. It's a really big thing that FANUC are doing this year. So please feel free to just have a look around, talk to people, and ask questions. Any more words? And lunch is being served now. We're a little bit late, but it's fine. There's plenty. So thank you, everybody, for today, and thank you, everyone, for getting involved.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we're here on the NCMT stand with Phil Catania, Business Development Manager. And you've been working on automation systems for quite a while, haven't you, Phil? And you've got a UK premiere to show us right now.
Yeah, so this is the Blue Photon automation solution. So what this does is automate a fixturing solution called Blue Photon. So that's holding the component without any mechanical clamps. So the glue is 100% holding the part, and it's not just holding the part by itself, it's holding the part without distorting it, without creating compliance issues in the component, without creating any stresses.
Yeah, absolutely. You might have trouble, I guess that's for people who've got thin-walled components that are very critical, that have critical tolerances and whatnot. And right now you're showing kind of a blade. Is this mostly aerospace applications? Are there other applications as well?
Yeah, exactly. So we find this a lot in aerospace companies, we find this a lot in defense companies, but all sorts of industries can benefit from it. Really, as you said, anything that's got thin walls, anything that's very fragile, or anything that's very difficult, very expensive to hold in a fixture, in a traditional fixture, Blue Photon is ideal for.
And normally, manually, a human being, I guess, would apply this glue. I guess this glue to the component, to the workpiece, and then how would that work normally?
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually a slightly labor-intensive process, traditionally. You'd have to apply the glue, which, you know, it's a chemical, it's not like water.
The glue's up there.
Exactly, yeah, that's syringe there. And the glue, like I said, it's a chemical, it's not just water. So there's obviously hazards within working with that chemical. And also, it's still a labor-intensive process, as you need to glue it on each gripper. Some customers have very large parts, which means they need to have more glue points for the surface area of the component. And really with that, it's also prone to errors and mistakes. With the glue and the process, you also need to leave a gap for the glue to actually do its work. It's only 2 millimeters, but imagine having to repeatedly put the part in the same position. You need to have some kind of fixture or setup to be able to place the part repeatedly. With a robot, it takes care of all of that for you.
Absolutely. If you've got big, long cycle times, I guess it makes sense. But if you've got a short cycle time, you don't want to be gluing it for more time than it's on the machine tool.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just that, it's also unmanned production. Being able to just leave the cell running, and that way you don't need to invest in many fixtures, many different component grippers. All you need is a couple set, one for the robot to handle while the other one's in the machine, and they can just run all night cycling through the 2 pallets rather than having stock on the shelf of fixtures which need to be preloaded before putting it on. We've even got customers that have automation systems where they're manually loading these blades or these components onto fixtures during the day, loading them up onto the automation pallet pool, and then the pallet pool's feeding the machine. So with this type of solution, with a robot cell, we can fully automate that and remove the human element to it, remove any human errors to it. With the condition monitoring that we've implemented into the cell as well, it brings the cell up to an Industry 4 standard. It means that we can monitor the vibration and the temperature and also the humidity around the fixturing environment. So if there's any conditions where the glue is really critical to the temperature, the humidity, if those conditions are not met, the cell can stop or a warning message can come up. And we can also save and record all those values for traceability.
Yeah, and that's really important, I guess, when you've got something that's got a chemical process involved, UV curing, a water bath to soften the glue again, because I guess the glue softens at 80 degrees to then take it off the fixture. These are all quite a lot of variables to control. And, you know, as you know probably very, very, very well, with automation, controlling variables is key.
It is, exactly, and that's really why we've developed this concept, not just to glue the component on, but also take the component off the fixture and then clean the fixture and clean the component, which means you can reutilize the same fixture over and over again and be 100% sure that it's done correctly each time.
And here's the blade ready to be finished with some good access and held on, really strong with some Blue Photon material. Thank you, Phil. And here we are at Loop Technology now, and we've interviewed you guys. You've been here maybe for at least the past 2 open houses, and you do some really incredible things. Who are Loop Technology, Adam?
So we're an industrial integrator, so we take other people's kit like FANUC and basically complete a full design and integration of a system to provide a full turnkey solution for our customers. We specialize in the aerospace and defense sectors, more specifically in the composites manufacturing lines now.
And you're talking high-value manufacturing. What does that mean?
So that means high quality, basically, which means is everything is quality checks. The systems are designed for high tolerances and high production as well.
Yeah, and big cycle time sometimes. Big components means big cycle time, so it takes a long time to produce the components. So there's a lot of opportunity really for time savings. Now this is something, you've got one specific application you want to talk about today, which is absolutely amazing. It's one of the first of its kind in this kind of technology, and it saves a lot of time. What is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So time is money in this sort of sector. So what we're doing today is looking at Fiberline, which is our new high-rate composite preforming cell. It's an end-to-end production cell, and it replaces what currently is either done by hand or AFP. So AFP is tape laying. It's very slow, and it's just basically laying up layers of tows to create a large composite preform. What we do is we take a roll of composite material, cut it, and then pick it with fiberform, which you can see in that image there, to shape it into the shape of our mold tool and place it down onto the mold tool for consolidation and curing. It is something in the region of 10 times faster than AFP, so it really is a step change in what the aerospace sector desperately needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So 10 times faster to make what kind of components?
Yeah, so it's large components like aeroplane wings, fuselage section, vertical stabilizers, components such as that.
And here you can see on the screen the actual, this is a single piece of composite that otherwise would be little bits of tape that would be laid up by hand. And this is the material shape that's going to get picked up and then going to get, I guess, actuated into that shape by what looks like thousands and thousands of suckers, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So Fiberform has been in development for about 15 years. It is an award-winning system designed for picking composite ply and critically not damaging them. So it controls the shear of the whole preform up to 5 meters by sort of 2 meters, so very, very large plies. Yeah, very impressive. Very impressive.
And so you move these sheets into really complex shapes, but you have to make sure you don't rip those sheets in the process. Is that quite a difficult thing to control?
It really is, yeah. So having a automated system that can control that, bend that material into that shape is very, very complicated. The software is unbelievable. It's as impressive as the hardware, as I always say. It's very, very impressive.
Problem with software is you can't see it. If only you could see the algorithms, I guess, at play, controlling all that hardware, then you'd be even more impressed than you are now.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. So Fiberline for improving massive carbon fiber layups or composite layups by 10 times, hopefully. Nice one. So if people want to find out more about what Loop Technology do, how can they find out?
So check us out on the website, LinkedIn as well. We're pretty hot on that. So yeah, always come along and let us know what you need.
Brilliant. So high value manufacturing, incredible applications here at Loop Technology. And here at the Manufacturing Technologies Association stand, I'm with James Selker. And James, why is it important that FANUC run these kinds of events? There's lots of companies, lots of people arriving, or potential customers as well. Why is it great for these people to get together in one room?
Because it's all about a community and it's about collaboration. And I suspect that one of the many reasons why UK manufacturing declined so heavily a generation ago was because everyone was doing their best but not collaborating. Obviously, you could argue there was other reasons as well, of course there were, but I think that was a major factor. And when you get FANUC encouraging its own competitors to come and display, it shows how serious they are about really helping UK manufacturing become more competitive as a community. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And if you remember Tom Bouchier's speech from this morning, he was referencing our report at the Manufacturing Technologies Association of manufacturing making a 23% contribution to the UK GDP. And, you know, obviously massively important to everyone's welfare and also to going green, to being, you know, more resilient as a nation, which these days has become massively important.
Absolutely, there's been a big influx, obviously a lot of people, but also a lot of dignitary figures from politics that maybe we wouldn't see normally. So we normally see aerospace manufacturers here, we see automotive manufacturers here, but people coming from the political sphere as well. Is that an important thing?
It's hugely important. The fact that the new government have committed to an industrial strategy in itself shows that suddenly we have an administration that recognises the importance of manufacturing to the UK community. And it was great to see the Metro Mayor here today, and also the Mayor of...
Rugby.
Rugby, the Mayor of Rugby, which was fabulous. So we'd like to encourage you know, everyone to be inclusive, because obviously we need to attract the finest talent into our industry in order to sustain it and move forward.
And obviously, with the event of MAC, you try and help people. You have like an educational day, and that's about trying to bring college students in and bring people from outside of maybe the industry, which is, it's not a closed industry, but you see a lot of very familiar faces every event you go. It's nice to try and open it up to the wider public as well. So how is it going with MAC, and do you have anything interesting planned for education?
Thank you so much for mentioning that. We'll just start off with MAC as a weather vane. MAC is already 60% sold, and we're about 18 months out from MAC 26, so we're really delighted that that confidence is showing through. So if anyone is thinking of coming, we'd recommend you book as early as possible. Thank you also for asking about all the work we put into education and development, attracting new people into the industry. We had 3,000 students at MAC 24. We had to close registration, and it's throughout the week. And we get our members' apprentices to show the secondary school students around so that it's peer-to-peer, so they can ask questions that are really relevant. We also have a new training platform which is going to be absolutely fantastic, not only to help our members but also visitors to MAC, so that they can find information on how to become more productive 24/7, basically.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, James. So that's been the Manufacturing Technologies Association stand here at FANUC Open House 2024. Yeah, make sure you tune in for the rest of the seminars happening tomorrow and Thursday. So there's lots more happening, lots more interesting stuff, maybe some more interesting reports as well. And here's... Rockwell Automation stand. I'm here with Cameron Young, technology consultant. And who are Rockwell Automation? You've been here, I guess, every open house that I've been here.
Yeah, so Rockwell Automation, we are the largest company in the world dedicated to industrial automation. So we do everything from sensors on the shop floor all the way up to manufacturing execution systems that will manage an entire facility.
Yep, so it's not just technology in terms of hardware we're talking about today. It's going to be this. You've got two screens showing off some software as well. Yep. Take me through the hardware you've got here. What are you showing off?
Yep, sure. So this is our Magnum Mover Lite. It's part of our independent cart technology portfolio. So we have a few that sit in that kind of space, but this is all about intelligent, flexible conveying systems. So this one, we've got straights here, we've got corners, but we've also got merges, diverges, so that you basically think of this as like a jigsaw to take product around the facility in a flexible, cost-efficient and energy-efficient way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen some, this is quite a simple demonstration. We've had some really crazy demonstrations before of things moving really quickly, diverting out, getting checked, getting scanned, coming back in. This would be, I guess, quite useful in quite a high value, where the things on here are quite high value, like in medicine.
Yes, yeah, high value stuff. Also things where you need to perhaps go to stations 1, 2 and 3 for one product, stations 2, 3 and 4 for one different product. So you've got lots of different products running down the same line. So you've got a nice flexible manufacturing process where you can, instead of doing any configuration changes, it's just a software change to run a different product down the line.
Yeah, so configurable factories. And I guess that helps because you've got some really strong software backgrounds as well. Yeah, let's talk about what you're going to be showing on the screens here today. What are you going to be talking about?
Right, so maybe we'll start on this one, let that one just play through a little bit. So this is a video demo of our cloud-based MES. It's a modular MES system. So there's different modules you can use or make use of. So we've got a manufacturing execution system. And then goes down to things like quality modules, or there's also a kind of an ERP type module as well. But you can chop and change as to your requirements. So we could work with a customer, work out exactly what the requirements are, and then kind of the option to tailor to the needs of the customer.
Absolutely. So ERP system will handle job orders, raise work orders from customers, track jobs around the shop floor, and various different activities like that, which will help to digitize your shop floor, which I guess if you try and digitize your hardware and your configurable production system, you can try and digitize your workflow, your work orders as well.
Exactly. And then maybe I'll just talk about this one on the other side.
Yeah, we can move over to the left-hand side, okay.
We've moved over from kind of this manufacturing execution system to a computerized maintenance management system. So this is all about digitizing and keeping track of
your maintenance activities.
Yeah, maintenance activities, work orders. So you've got your assets in here, you've got your work, your stores, and you've got work orders. So you can tie this into your control system and say, okay, well, actually, I'm going to, instead of, say, every 6 months, I'm going to run a specific work order to do some maintenance, I'm going to actually tie that into the runtime, the actual runtime that I'm pulling out of my control system for that machine, so that I'm actually tying that in and not just doing kind of preventive
reactive maintenance.
I'm doing it based on actual
the usage of a certain production line. Perfect. So that means, I guess, that you actually maintain something based on its usage, not based on some arbitrary time length you choose or the manufacturer tells you to.
Exactly. And there's some nice buzzword, some artificial intelligence in here as well that will do things like determine when you need to buy certain stock supplies, work out what your stock levels should be. So there's a bit of intelligence in there as well as pushing out work orders to mobile devices, and then giving people that are doing that work order the option to provide written or photographic feedback, so that you can actually keep track of what's been done, when, by who, just for tracking assets.
It's really important when you've got a really expensive production line that's been built bespoke for a factory. You need to maintain it correctly and make sure it's traceable. There's also another piece of software really interesting from Rockwell called Emulate 3D. Yes. And what does that do?
So Emulate 3D is we call it a digital twin, sits in the design space. So what that does is allow you to bring in, it's a 3D environment, but also allows you to do things like run simulations, run emulations. So when I talk about simulations, I'm talking about you inbuild logic into Emulate 3D having brought in either some catalog objects there's a wide variety of catalog objects to suit different facilities, different applications in Emulate 3D, but you can also tailor it to your CAD. So bring in your CAD, and you're basically writing logic and creating a throughput of material, and you run that at 100, 200, 300, 400 times speed, and you work out when your bottlenecks are going to be, different speeds, different configurations. But then taking that same model, talk about your control system. So, okay, I've worked out that I'm going to get my 400 widgets through, and now I'm going to talk about how am I going to get that? What's my control system going to look like for that? And you use Emulate 3D as a test bed. You connect up your PLC or your control system or even your MES, and you say, okay, right, I want to write something that looks like this. But if you think about it, the usual time when you get to first time to test that is when you're next to the physical machine or the physical line. By that point, you're committed to a design, you're committed to a control strategy. The idea of Emulate 3D is you connect those two things, your mechanical and your controls and your electrical, together early on, and you find out where your problems are going to be much early on, design out bugs, and also just test scenarios that you never would in the real world, because you might waste stuff or it might be safety related. So this one behind you now is Emulate 3D. So this is a cell assembly model which actually runs in our so we've got the physical version of this in our electric vehicle center in San Jose in California. So this is with FANUC robotics and some of our independent cart technology, but just running through. So this digital version runs at the same time as the physical version.
You're loading up battery cells here and putting them into a little carriage. And that's really important nowadays, I guess, for battery EV manufacturers. A big question, a lot of manufacturers are asking questions about how to do this. And with Emulate 3D, you can set up a whole cell and do, I guess, accurate time studies, make sure things work, like you say, iron out bugs before you've even made a commitment to buying any mechanical objects or designing anything in real life.
Yes, exactly. That's the point. It's before you've bought any steel or tied anything down, you're testing out designs, improving them at a point where it's easier to change those designs and press them.
I'm going to walk over here now because it sounds like you're trying to do stuff with that kind of Emulate 3D software. You're trying to reduce the stress in the manufacturing process. So I'm going to reduce my stress now with your little helmet. Brilliant. That's been Rockwell Automation, reducing stress, designing complex manufacturing systems. We're here on the Ferrobotics stand. I'm here with Stefan. Stefan, thank you so much for having us at your stand. What are you showing off today?
So I'm showing off our 80K taping unit. We have a demo unit here with our hard piece and our AEK system.
And this is some really, on the back of kind of every piece of Ferrobotics hardware which goes on the end of a robot, there's some really interesting patented technology. There's a really cool demo here. We'll look at that in a little bit later. But that patented technology allows you to do loads of different applications, like this one here. What's this?
So this is our taping unit. This is our taping head. We have our compliance unit here. So we create the force, and within a certain stroke position, we can control that force. We have the taping roll here. It goes down here. We have a little blade here and the roller.
Yeah, cool. And let's get it going, and then you can talk to me about the applications. So you've got it on a FANUC CRX cobot.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm just starting the program right now. And as you can see here, we're going to touch the surface, build up the force, roll the tape on it, cut the tape, and put it on the surface.
And it's really quick, but it's not about the speed, it's also about the quality of the taping or whatever process you'll be doing.
Yes, so the repeatability is very important. The force needs to be consistent. I will just run it again to see that we can actually tape the tape onto each other. Yeah. And it's repeatable.
Because that compliance makes sure that it doesn't matter actually the contours of the component, the exact contours of a component don't matter. As long as you get the the general contour of the robot movement, it doesn't matter if there's deviations in the component.
Exactly, so we compensate those deviations within the stroke and we keep the force consistent on the surface.
Yeah. And why is it important to do that? Not just in terms of contour deviation, but in terms of the actual processes you're doing. So I guess taping, it wouldn't matter a huge amount if you're a little bit off, but with other stuff like you've got brushing, taping, grinding, sanding, these can be quite sensitive to the contours of the component.
Exactly, so taping is just one application. We are mainly focused on the grinding, sanding, polishing parts, or even deburring, and there you need the active compliance unit.
If those are finished components, polishing, you need to have a really good surface. That's what the customer will see. Yeah, it's really important.
You need the consistency, you need the repeatability. If you do a lot of same pieces every time, they need to be perfect every single time, and this is what we allow them to do.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then you've got a demo here to show off kind of the really interesting technology that you've got patented with Fair Robotics.
Exactly. So here's the ACF unit. This is the heart piece of every product that we have. This controls and creates the force within a certain stroke position. And on the screen you see the force in newtons and the position in millimeters. Currently we have 10 newtons of force, which is like...
and so that's the set point. This red line is the set point of what force you want to achieve in your process, whether you're grinding with 10 newtons, polishing. That's your consistency you want to achieve to get a good surface finish.
Yes, and the red line is currently the soft touch force that we have. So if you touch a surface, you don't want to touch it with the full force. You want to go gentle on it and then build up the force. Exactly. So if I touch our tool here and put it within the stroke, you see that after 1 second it builds up to 30 newtons and it holds it within the stroke position. Even if I move it, we're still consistent.
Yeah. So you see on the bottom here, this is the deflection, the deviation that Stefan's moving with his hand. And even though he deviates, there's a 50 mil stroke here, you're deviating almost the full 50 mil stroke, the force is barely changing. Yeah. So there's a really fast control system inside here that responds to your movement and can manage the force appropriately.
Yeah, that's how it is. We have 4 milliseconds of connection between that, so we're basically doing this in real time.
Yeah. 4 millisecond response rate in the control system, and that means that, I guess, what does that mean for customers who are doing these kinds of operations?
So if you're grinding, sanding, or deburring, and you really want to, or you have to change it within the process, or you have to use a different force on like an edge, you can do that really fast and program that pretty easily.
Yeah, absolutely. So it takes time out of programming the robot, so you can have simpler contours. Yeah. But you still maintain or even improve the actual resulting surface finish.
Exactly, 100%. And if you have the same consistent parts and the same force every time, the parts are always going to be the same. That's what you want.
Perfect. So reliable compliance for end effectors on robots. If you've got sanding, brushing, grinding, changing, cleaning, taping, can all be done here with Fair Robotics robot ends. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. I've been running around the whole site here at FANUC, looking at all the partners, technical partners here. We'll be talking to more technical partners tomorrow and the day after, all the way up to Thursday. So make sure you tune in to see some more technical partner interviews in the next couple of days. But right now, I've been very kindly joined by the speakers today who did seminars, panel discussion, which was I'm sure very interesting, overranked by quite a while. I'm sure there's a lot to talk about. So from my left to my right, we go Steve Grace from Cummins, Tom Bouchier from FANUC, and also Marco Chassin from Airbus. So yeah, could you give us a bit of a background about yourselves first? Then we'll do a bit of a recap about what you talked about, and then we'll just continue with the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Steve Grace from Cummins. Been in manufacturing now about 25 years, but currently work in global manufacturing engineering, looking after automation and technology for Cummins globally.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. And what do you manufacture at Cummins?
So we're most famous for diesel engines. That was always the the core brand. That's what we've been doing for 100 years. But now very much we are a power company, and we have a very clear net zero strategy with all the transition technologies and electrolyzers and green energy solutions as well.
Brilliant. Yeah. So I guess kind of the new energy sources like batteries would need a lot more automation and a lot more engineering that goes into that. We'll talk about that in a little bit, hopefully. Tom, background, please.
Yeah, I'm Tom Bouchier, Managing Director at FANUC here in the UK, and it's my pleasure to host everybody here today. We need to address a lot of the areas that we need to improve within the UK manufacturing to get us to where we can be, where we deserve to be, where we should be. And I think it's by having partners like this on the show to explain their automation journey, not just me trying to sell automation. So we have everybody, all of our system partners, all of our suppliers, all of our customers here to really hold a whole 360 on who's needed to address the problems. It's not just the manufacturers, it's not just government, it's not just academic institutions and not just OEMs, it's all of us. So we need to get together to do it. So that's my reason for having the show here today.
Absolutely, thanks for organising it, Tom. We're appreciating it. There's a lot of people, at least there were a lot of people queuing up for lunch as well, so it's not just about the hard technicals. We can enjoy ourselves here and have a bit of a social time as well. And then, last but not least, Marco.
Right, so Marco Chassin, I belong to the Central Robotics Development Team in Airbus. I myself have a team of engineers across about 7 sites, and we're basically putting together systems to make aircraft. Basically today, I myself have been in multiple industries, about 25 years too, and prominently in aerospace, and obviously now contributing to the aircraft of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And Airbus is quite an interesting company. I mean, you've got a lot of suppliers in the UK. Right. Is the major base in France the major manufacturing?
Yeah.
hub?
So well, we have, I think, more than 20 or 30 sites. The final assembly lines are. We have 4 major assembly lines in the world. One in France, in Toulouse. One in Hamburg. One in Mobile, Alabama, in the US. And the Tianjin file in China, of course.
Wow, okay.
So this is where all the bits and pieces that are being built all around come together to actually produce the aircraft.
Yeah, but if you were to track, I guess, the whole supply chain, you'd be talking about a huge number of companies.
Absolutely.
From tier 1, 2, 3, all the way down.
I mentioned it on the presentation today that we have 12,000 suppliers, and we get about 2.5 million parts every day.
Wow,
so
that's
it's
amazing.
a major operation.
Yeah, brilliant. And that takes me, I guess, to the first seminar today was the relationship between Airbus and FANUC, which I guess is quite a close one. That's why you're here talking.
Yep.
What is the nature of that relationship, and how do you work together?
So it started a few years ago when right about the time when I joined Airbus. We basically, we looked at the market. We understood that there was no robot off the shelf that we can use in our production. Lack of accuracy, lack of rigidity in the robot as well. So we basically went to FANUC, specifically in Japan, to headquarters, and we asked them directly, we want you to make this for us. And we worked more or less in secrecy for a few years, and we were the first use case for that robot. We now have that robot in production, and that robot has also gone to become part of the, I would say, a major part of the production of the product line. And that technology has been, is being now carried on into other things.
And that's not secret anymore.
It's not secret anymore.
We have to tell you to
no.
stop talking.
We actually we put that out for. We did a joint press release early this year in Farnborough, where basically told the world that we've been involved in this. So we're very proud of this relationship. We've done very well, together. So we're looking forward to more years of collaboration.
Yeah.
I think that's really key to a lot of this collaboration is, as manufacturers of the equipment, we don't know all the processes. We don't know people's manufacturing facilities, what's needed. So we have to listen to people about what is required. We can then develop it and try to help it along and make it what's needed. But if you've done it the other way around, that's like us telling you this is what we can do, you fit it into your production. Makes no sense really. It has to be the other way around. And the only way we're going to get that is to listen to everybody. We need to listen to the multinationals who have got sites all over the world, plus the smaller SMEs over here as well. Because what's developed for Airbus could suit somebody over here that's doing a very high accuracy job as well. But it could be a very small company that's a major supplier to Airbus or Cummins.
So this is a very good point by Tom, because we hesitated at the beginning because we are not the kind of user for FANUC that will buy 1,000 robots. Not today, not in the next 5 years. However, the attitude from FANUC, the FANUC side is that if we can do that for you, first of all, it's an interesting challenge. And to what Tom said, if we can do this, then other suppliers or other customers will come up that will need the same sort of accuracy or rigidity, and they will be start using the same robot as well. So it's been a really fruitful relationship, and it goes a long way with other suppliers too, by the way, that we can say FANUC, a company that is very successful, is at the top of their game, it's actually listening to what we have to say, right, or listening to what our requirements are. They will do the same now, because they've seen that a company like FANUC has done it, so why not do it themselves too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe it's time to bring Steve. I guess you've probably got a lot to say about this.
No, I was happy listening, but happy to engage in the conversation
So you were talking about the successes and challenges of global automation deployment, which is, I guess, similar to what Airbus do. For you making, you have 29 million components arriving every day.
Yeah. 2.5.
2.5 million. Then you've already got global automation, and so do Cummins as well. And how important is it, like you talking to OEM, the original equipment manufacturers, about just making a small change maybe in the equipment they supply? And what effect can that have on the supply chain, on your production?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just to talk about what we talked about earlier, obviously our big thing was about trying to deliver a step change in automation technology within our plants. So, every company and most plants are already trying to push the envelope, but we knew as Cummins, in the sort of early part of the decade, that we needed to make a bigger push, right? And that was what the program was about. We wanted that step change, that incremental investment in technology. So, and that's worked out really well for us. Now, for us, we probably have a slightly more indirect relationship with FANUC, but though it's getting closer. Oliver keeps pushing that. But the reality is that we can't stress the importance of the integrators for us. And I really, I don't think, this would be inappropriate to say what it's Tom, but we work through a lot of really great integrators. Many of them are close partners of yours. And for us I'll call us a mid-tier industrial, they are the key because our projects are a little bit smaller, a little bit more general, and they really, really help us. So we're probably having less direct impact on the products right now, but really leveraging the skills of those integrators to help us to apply standard technologies to our niche applications.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, and I guess when you've got companies like Airbus working direct with FANUC, and then you have integrators that will use one product that will apply in 1,000 different scenarios. This collaboration produces technology that will trickle down to get used in SMEs later down the line.
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm trying to figure out, I've taken some screenshots, I'm going to be going back later and trying to figure out, because obviously the capabilities that Marco and FANUC Airbus and FANUC have developed, are applicable across lots of industries. That rigidity, that reactive force handling that I heard described has already kind of sparked my interest. And so the benefit for people coming here is to understand those capabilities that have been offered. And I think I talked about it in my presentation. I don't think the capabilities of robotics and automation have been steadily increasing, as well as the affordability of technology. I don't think everyone's always up to speed. So events like this are just fantastic for people to come in and get that and go away, because you're inspired. I mean, that's the thing, that, you know, you're going to go back and figure out what you can, you know, use yellow robots for after this.
Yeah, totally. Brilliant. And so when it comes to the more kind of SMEs who might come today, would you have any advice? I'll open the question. Would you have any advice for SMEs that are interested in automation but don't quite know where to start?
Can I take that one?
Yeah.
I think engage with all the partners that can tell you what's going on. We had a question upstairs earlier on about, would you go to the MTC or one of the societies or go to all of them. We need to get those partners together, and what's important to me is that we join that together, that I get the MTC, that I get BARA, that I get the MTA, that I get everybody together, so that you've got one message to give out to people. Small companies that have got on the really low end of S can learn from these guys.
Yeah.
These guys use automation because it's good for business, not because they like it.
And the other way around, by the way.
And the other, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that's the important thing, that in FANUC's case, FANUC is basically a load of engineers that like the technical challenge. So when Marco went to Japan and comes up with a technical challenge, it really piques their interest, because we know that we can use it elsewhere. We know that if Airbus are having it, lots of other people are having it. So let's make a product that fits the purpose, not make it fit the purpose you're doing. Not try and make something a round peg in a square hole. Let's make the product that is right for it. And that will trickle down the whole way through it. It's been happening for years in automotive. Automotive led the way on where robotics should go, and everybody else followed. Now it's a lot of these other vertical market sectors need to get up and say what they need, and then we can make the products to suit it.
That advice from Tom actually goes beyond just technology, because, you know, finding the right partner, finding the right people that are doing things for you. If you think about it, it would be very difficult for a small company to get into our procurement, because obviously they don't have maybe the capital investment. There are many elements to it, but if they find the right partner, they can get the technology through. It's just you need to find the right opportunities for you there. So finding the right person to talk to, to partner up and then do the job is definitely the right way of doing things.
And I think you find. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, man.
I'm going to go.
Yeah, you go ahead.
I think integrators are vital to us. I've only got a certain amount of resource here, a certain amount of availability, and a certain footprint. What I need to do is go after a certain level of system, a certain price of system, a certain size of system, but then I need to pull everybody up behind me to make sure that, because the most important thing about integrators is they have local knowledge of the plants they're working in, they know the people, they know the processes, but what we really need to do is make sure that they have the skill level to deliver that project effectively. The worst thing you can do with a system integrator is just leave them to figure out how your technology works. We need to make sure that they get the absolute best out of that piece of equipment, because then it will aid everybody's production. And increased production, increased productivity, increased profitability is everybody's drive. So we need to make sure, which is here, if you talk to a lot of the system partners here, they know that what they'll get is the support and the backup from us to support the manufacturers for what they need. It shouldn't be for me to decide what they need, it's them to decide what to need and tell me.
Yeah.
It's completely the opposite way around.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I was going to bring the integrators back in. I feel like I'm being the champion, but they are absolutely key for us. And what I would say is that, you know, depending on where you are on that technology readiness, integrators have probably solved that problem. I'm a big proponent of not reinventing the wheel. You know, there's often that the problem you've got has been solved, and integrators or people like FANUC can help you see that light by bringing in the knowledge and experience they've gained in other markets and other industries as well. So, yeah, big up the integrators today.
Absolutely.
That is a network that we need to grow. Like, I know for a fact that companies like FANUC, they have a wide network of integrators that are actually certified to use their equipment. But the question there is, how many of those integrators can actually take a 300 million euro PO?
Yeah.
Which means that, and you'll find a few, but very few.
Yep.
But which means that we just need to.
Yes.
Yeah.
We will.
we just need to grow the whole, the whole spectrum.
Yep.
Because we can do once we get ready to launch a new product in the next 10, 20 years, the supply chain was split because Boeing will do the same.
Yeah.
That's no secret. So we will need that network to make sure that we can all together we can get to our goals in releasing that product in the next few years.
Yeah, and I think that is key to it. What you said earlier on about we need to not reinvent the wheel. So a lot of things that other sectors have done will be applicable to you as well.
Absolutely.
So if we get these West Midlands cluster up where it's got a lot of the manufacturers from different products, if we get a lot of the academics together and a lot of the OEMs together, we can answer the question once.
Yep.
And everybody can all keep your IP and the really clever bit you don't want to get out. But the rest of the stuff, how to handle something, how to move something, isn't the hardest thing in the world. So don't reinvent a way of doing it. Use a way that's already been invented. I can't see how it doesn't make sense to everybody to do it. It's in everybody's interest.
It's productivity and innovation and solutioning again. I mean, we talk about direct productivity, but we've got to be back to our UK PLC discussions. We've got to be smarter about how we share that around the industries and share from other industries to make sure we're smart.
Definitely. We've got probably just a couple of minutes left. I think let's get into the nitty-gritty. Just something interesting is what are the biggest automation challenges you've had to solve in the past 10 years? Yeah, some of you probably maybe can't talk about. They might still be a bit secret, but what do you struggle with in automotive, EV assembly?
Can I talk about my favourite one?
Yeah.
And I was talking about this earlier with this is my vacuum cleaner.
Right.
We have manufacturing cleanliness as part of our routine, and it was a dull task, where an operator had to clean the pallets before they go back round, and it was a beautiful application of automation that was quick and easy and effective, and it delivered improvements in quality, in job satisfaction, and obviously it was just really smart. And I love it because I think it's accessible and it's relatable to a lot of people, and it wasn't a high investment.
And that saves someone from vacuuming a pallet.
Yeah.
It's really, really simple. And that wouldn't be seen as kind of a high cost added value process, but actually if you need to clean a pallet that has a £1 million component on it, then you clean it. That's an important process.
That's why it's one of my favourites.
I can't talk about any individual projects because we deal with a lot of companies and I don't know what to do. But what I would say, what I would say is I love it when you suddenly see new manufacturers understand what automation can give them. When that light bulb finally switches on and they can see, that's a journey that makes me feel I've done a worthwhile job in getting them to that point. So it's not the process for me, it's where I get them in their automation journey is key to me. Any part is important to me. Doesn't matter whether it's an airplane, if it doesn't matter if it's a nut and bolt, they're all equally important to me because they're all customers. But I want to see that light bulb moment when they say, yeah, that really could help me. We could make that work. That's worth coming in for.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tom. And so, Marco, I'm going to get the better question that Steve gave me was, what's your favourite automation challenge?
It's like you're asking me which is my favorite kid.
Yeah.
I could answer that one.
There's always a favourite. There's always.
Well, I mean, there are a few things that we've done over the last few years. The automated rigging using the FANUC robots comes to mind. Also, low accessibility installation of flying components and things like that we've done. I can't understate how important has been the relationship that we have with FANUC, creating a new thing. It's easy to think that I'm a roboticist, but it's easy to think that industrial robots are done. Mechanically speaking, there's not much you can innovate there, and yet we did it. Right, with the help of FANUC. So I think that this is an important milestone for us as we've achieved this together. So that would be my favorite one for now.
Brilliant. Hopefully. Thank you very much, everybody. So Stephen Cummins, helping workplaces be a nicer place to work with automation.
Yes.
Tom, loving the light bulbs getting turned on.
Thank you.
And then Marco, I guess, working on improving mechanical stuff that we didn't think could even be improved.
Thank you.
Any last closing comments, guys?
No, just thank you. Really great just talk about, really passionate about manufacturing and the role that automation and robotics has to play in it and the increasing importance of it. I know I'm sounding like I'm, bandstanding. I'm taking a leaf out of Tom's book, but it is so, it's so important. I love manufacturing. It's the biggest value-adding step of any economic driver, and here we are making it better. Yeah.
This is going to sound like I'm making it up. I'd also like to thank MTD CNC for coming in getting that visibility out there and for singing the same message that these guys are singing that I'm singing. We need to carry on manufacturing. We need to make things. We need to be excited by manufacturing. I think MTD, CNC bring that to the party. So thank you very much for everything you're doing here.
Thank you, Tom.
Hey, I've been to every single one of these. This is always an important place to come and meet people, understand what's going on. So I hope everybody enjoys it.
Brilliant. So that's it. That's been the FANUC Open House podcast today. We're going to be showing seminars, partner interviews, and also more podcasts live tomorrow and Thursday. So tune in tomorrow and Thursday if you've got free time, if you're interested in robotics, automation, industrial automation, all of this good stuff. Tune in tomorrow.